program, we do multi-stream. We're on Facebook, we're on Periscope, we're even on Twitch, even though this isn't a game show. But the big home base is YouTube, and YouTube always takes a quick minute for things to get alive and well, and it looks like they are rolling. So let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our very justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and we know it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and I to follow. But sometimes they have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves, and so that's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency back down upon our very system with the hopes of encouraging some meaningful change. And we've got a lot to get to today. We're still sort of dissecting what the Biden administration is doing. Joe Biden today was out in the White House without a mask again, and he was talking about COVID-19 and about how it's kind of looking a little bit dreary. And so we want to break down and show you what that looks like. The media is doing everything they can to cover for this new administration. New story came out today. There was excellent work by author over at Reason.com that was just uncovering this whitewashing, this sweeping under the rug of a statement that Miss Kamala Harris made back during the campaign season, or I think this was actually back during 2019. And she made this statement, and then they just revised the article and basically deleted this really problematic thing that she said. And so we want to show you what is going on with that, because I think we're going to see a lot more of this stuff as the media continues to cover for this new administration. We're going to talk about, of course, the story that went viral late last night. The story here was that the National Guard, after they sort of expired, as soon as Congress was done, as soon as their usefulness evaporated, the congressional people in Congress, I don't know who's behind it. I think we're going to want to get to the bottom of that, but basically threw all the National Guard out into a parking lot and said, thanks, boys and girls. It's been real, but you're on your own. So we want to break that down. We're going to be talking about some other things. Let's see, what else do we have? Lloyd Austin is going to be the new Secretary of Defense. Little interesting things there. And closely connected to that, there's this new article out from Unclassified documents that say that the military, the intelligence apparatus that's closely connected to the military, is just gobbling up all sorts of data from U.S. citizens without getting a warrant. They're supposed to get a warrant, but they're not. They're just going through a little bit of a loophole buying commercial data. Want to talk about that. We also are going to wrap up the show with an update on the impeachment proceedings. We now have some dates that are set in stone. Senator Schumer is gung-ho about this impeachment ordeal. And in fact, he was on the Senate floor today talking about an incitement of an erection. What? So we're going to talk about that. If you're wondering what the thumbnail was today, that's it. A little slip of the tongue there for our lovely Senator Schumer. So we're going to break all of that down. And I know a lot of people have been asking about Maricopa County, the Board of Supervisors. So we have a little bit of an update on that as well. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to, of course, subscribe to the channel if you're not already done so. We go live at this time every day of the week. We want you to be a part of it. So a like, a thumbs up, a comment, an invitation to somebody else would be very much appreciated. If you're not a regular of the program, you may not know this, but we go through some slides. I'm going to show you some primary source documents. We're going to learn a little bit about what's going on in the world. And then at the end of the program, we're going to do a live chat. So if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to submit, you can go ahead and do so now. Miss Faith is going to clip them, and we'll get to those at the end of the program. Normally, the slides would be available somewhere else, but we got canceled off that platform. So there are now available at our new platform over on Locals. Locals is where everything is really going to be for the foreseeable future, at least in terms of slides and post and pre-show conversations. And so feel free to head over there. It's watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We sort of figured out some of the kinks on that whole platform. It looks like if you want to post, you do have to support the community. And right now it's a $5 contribution. I don't think it's recurring. I think you can just pay it one time and then you can comment. But you can consume everything everything for free without making a payment. So you can get the slides, get the existence templates, get a copy of my book, get a copy of the impeachment templates as well. Existence systems, all that stuff is available for free. But if you want to comment, then I think you got to pay something. And there's a lot of good people over on Local, so I think it'd be a worthwhile investment. All right, so enough of that. Let's get into the news. As I had mentioned previously, wanted to start off with a little bit of a kind of a crash course on what the Biden administration has been doing. And it's, the facade is crumbling off of the Biden administration right before our very eyes, as we all expected. We were thinking prior to the actual inauguration day, we're wondering, it's weird. They're very critical of Donald Trump on all of these different things. Apparently, they have a plan that as soon as they come into office, they can just start executing the plan and things are going to get much better. Right? Joe Biden said, 100-day mask mandate. We talked about that yesterday. Even though he wasn't wearing a mask at the Lincoln Memorial, wasn't wearing a mask around the White House, his press secretary Jen Psaki was not wearing a mask during the press briefings, and on and on and on. So automatically, just instant hypocrisy coming out of the administration, which is not a surprise. But they set the standards. It's not a standard that we set that they're violating. We're not calling them hypocrites because they're not meeting some standard that we created for them. It's their own standards they're violating. So, all right, well, we're going to see a lot more of that. And one of the big underlying themes of the election season was, of course, COVID. Donald Trump was just terrible with COVID. Everything he was doing was so asinine, and there's no way that anybody competent could have gotten such a bad result. We saw death counters, death tolls everywhere you turn. Washington Post and CNN, just the little bubbles down there in the corner of their screens where just every day, just more dead, more dead, more dead, and they're just salivating over it because they know how damaging it is to the current administration. Well, we were thinking, as soon as Joe Biden takes office, well, we're going to have somebody competent in there now. They're going to come in and just clean house, and they're going to get this all situated, all figured out real nice and quickly, because I don't know why people were saying that. Apparently, he's more competent than Trump, whatever it is. But today we learned that they were addressing COVID, and Joe Biden says, sorry, boys and girls, there is nothing that we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. There's nothing we can do about that. What? That's not what you said previously. Here is Joe Biden. This came over from Ian G. Haworth over on Twitter, and it's spreading around all over Twitter right now. It says, just in, President Biden says there is nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic. And Ian is saying, wow, that narrative changed pretty damn quick, didn't it? He's exactly right. And we're going to show you what he's talking about. Here is Joe Biden. Oh, is that going to play? Here it is.
If we fail to act, there will be a wave of evictions and foreclosures in the coming months as this pandemic rages on, because there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months.
Okay. Well, that's curious, because you had said when you were campaigning that I'm not going to shut down the country. I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus. Said that as early as October 30th, 2020, over on TweetDeck on Twitter. So I'm going to shut down the virus. All right. And then anything else there, Joe? Well, on a couple weeks before that, on October 15th, he says we're 8 months into this pandemic and Donald Trump still doesn't have a plan to get this virus under control. I do. So many people were just sort of, watching his posts and thinking, maybe he is going to shut down the virus, because that's what he said, right? He said that right there. I'm going to shut down the virus. Cool. You're in office now. We could use that. The American people, we could actually, can you do it now? Can you shut it down or tell us what's going to happen on this thing? Because we're all waiting for it. Apparently, more people than ever in the history of ever voted for this guy. I think that they probably were relying on some of the things that he said. And then, something else like, I have a plan to get the virus under control. Well, what is the plan? Execute it. We're all waiting around for it until today he comes out and says, whoop, nope, not so fast, my friends. Nothing we can do. And of course, the typical response you're going to see on Twitter is, well, they inherited all of this stuff. They inherited this problem, and it's all Donald Trump's fault. But how does that jive with what we talked about yesterday when Joe Biden was saying, we want to get up to 100 million vaccinations in the first 100 days? And a reporter says, well, today we just got 1.2 million vaccinated. So that's a rolling average of about 975,000 per day. I think today was 1.6 million, when that's all Trump's work. So the reporter was asking him, hey, if you're already basically exceeding that pace, you're already getting 1 million a day at this point in time. We got 1.2 yesterday, 1.6 today, it sounds like. Then how does that work? Because should we raise the bar a little bit? I mean, you're basically saying that you want to accomplish something that's already been accomplished. So shouldn't you do more than that? And if they're going to be sort of, playing both sides of this thing, saying, Donald Trump was so incompetent that he couldn't even execute a plan, and they have to enact a certain standard that is Donald Trump's plan. And then today coming out and saying, we can't get this under control. Donald Trump doesn't have a plan. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouths when they're following the Trump plan and then saying today we can't get it under control. And so the whole thing was just a bunch of baloney, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And other people are noticing that. You may recall this guy, Justin Amash. He is not a fan of Donald Trump, not a particular, a right winger or anything like that. This guy, I think, is a libertarian at this point in time. I can't tell with him. He kind of just flops all over the place. But he's saying here, Biden, there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. Haven't we been told for months that restrictions and mandates were necessary to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months? Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly what they've been saying. Dr. Fauci, all of these people, these medical professionals, these experts, and the quote scientists, right? They're going to listen to these scientists now because Donald Trump was such just an incompetent monkey. He wasn't listening to the science. Now they're going to listen to the science, and suddenly things are going to get better, but apparently they're not. So very critical of the Trump administration. They're not going to change anything because they're just going to follow the same plan that's already in place, at least as it relates to the vaccinations. Or if they change the plan, it's going to be accomplishing the same goals. And now they're just lowering expectations. You see what this is? Lowering expectations just across the board, saying, and this happened immediately after the election, by the way. We've talked about this. Joe Biden said it's going to be a dark winter, I think, in his inaugural address. Prior to that, he said our darkest days are ahead of us. We covered both of those clips on this show, and they're just continuing to smash those expectations into the ground. And it worked for them, right? They built them all up. They said, we're going to come in and we're going to sweep into power and we're going to solve this issue immediately. 2 days after he's in the White House, he's now saying we're not going to be able to change the trajectory of this pandemic in the next 7 months or several months, right? So massive hypocrisy. We all saw it coming. We all knew that, that basically this thing is here to stay. He's acknowledging that. Donald Trump was essentially acknowledging that, right? He wasn't fluffing all of this language up, wasn't coming out there and saying, we're going to end this thing and we're going to crush it. I'm going to stop the virus. He just was telling it like it is. And that did not get him elected because people don't want to hear that. The other side of the aisle was just saying, we're going to solve this. Everything's going to be all well and good as soon as we get some competency in the White House. Well, apparently they're in the White House. We're not seeing any increase in competency because they were a little bit dishonest. That's just one man's opinion. And it's not just on COVID. Remember when Kamala Harris was saying that they were going to not ban fracking? That is a fact. She said this back on October 7, 2020. 12,000 retweets, 1,601 quote retweets, 94, almost 100,000 likes. Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. And here is Joe Biden himself saying the same thing over on Fox News on the 5. Here he is.
Saying about fracking after being attacked by President Trump.
I am not banning fracking. Let me say that again. I am not banning fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me.
Okay, so not going to be banning fracking. Well, that's pretty interesting because we saw these two clips posted over by Jack Posobiec on Twitter, and you're seeing what the media is doing here. We're going to talk about the media here next. It says the Trump campaign promotes a false claim that Biden would end fracking. This was posted by this individual down here, Glenn Kessler, on October 7th, 2020, by the Washington Post, where they say democracy dies in darkness. Well, a short time later, on January 20th, another article by Katie Pavlich says the Biden administration, yes, we are following through with a fracking ban. So there you go. So they're going to cure COVID, can't cure COVID. Sorry about that. We're not going to ban fracking. We're going to ban fracking. Sorry about that. The Keystone Pipeline, well, we're just not going to really talk about that one. It's canceled the first day in office. And so you just see how this is working, and the media was covering for him the whole time. If they would have been asking legitimate questions prior to the election and would have held them accountable and called them out for giving non-answers, then maybe the result of the election would have changed. But they knew that, and that's why they weren't asking the questions, right? Their plan is coming to fruition, and now the facade is falling off, and we can see this administration for what it really is. Just a bunch of intellectual, dishonest people who are promising one thing out of the one side of their mouths and then realizing that they cannot deliver it once they are on the inside. Some other concerning things out of the Biden administration today, briefly, they are looking like they're going to be moving towards combating domestic extremism. And so here is this article. It looks like this was coming from the Biden administration unveils a plan to combat domestic terrorism. Here's how it works. Biden has sent a request for the newly confirmed Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, we talked about her yesterday, to conduct a threat assessment in coordination with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security that Psaki said will produce a, quote, fact-based analysis on which we can shape policies. So they're doing an audit. They're going to do a threat assessment on domestic extremism, whatever that means. The White House National Security Council will be tasked then with building capacity to tackle and disrupt extremist networks. This is a little bit concerning, remember, because yesterday we had John Brennan, who's formerly with the CIA, who said, extremist groups, that could be white supremacists, that could be, domestic terrorists, but it also could be libertarians, those libertarians talking about their small government ideals and low taxation and free economics. Whoa. We need to pump the brakes on those people. Those people are out of their minds. And so, are they going to be included in this group? Are they now extremist networks? Well, we're going to find out. Homeland Security Advisor Elizabeth Sherwood Randall asked Joshua Geltzer, a former NSC counterterrorism director, to lead a 100-day investigation, all stemming, of course, from the Capitol Hill riots. The administration will work to mobilize other factions of the government to address evolving threats, radicalization, the role of social media, opportunities to improve information sharing, operational responses, and more. So just get ready for an overarching, just never-ending encroachment of the federal government to come in there and root out that domestic terrorism, that domestic extremism. It's not even terrorism, it's extremism, which is, very subjective. You can just sort of say whatever you want, just lump anybody into that. So, all right, so it's been a wild couple days, hasn't it? And it's just going to continue on. We've got to buckle up for a long 4 years. So the media, as we were talking about, is just doing everything they can to cover for this administration. It's par for the course, but it's really bad. I mean, really bad. I'm not a journalist, and I can just tell you that what we're seeing here today, in my mind, is just totally unethical. And it's not something that I think I would be comfortable doing and sleeping well at night, but they're doing it all over the place. One good example comes from Reason. Reason.com is it's a right-ish website, and they do libertarian. It's more libertarian minded. So presumably they're part of the extremists who are going to be thrown out of the country for talking about, I don't know, civic politics and things like that. But anyway, so Reason.com, they posted this earlier this morning, and I want to give you some framework on the story before we dive into what Kamala Harris actually said. So here is the foundation of this. Back in 2019, I think it was 2019, Kamala Harris was published in an article. Yeah, July 23rd, 2019. There was an article about her, and she gave this really gross statement about sort of making fun of people who are in custody, right? I'm a criminal defense attorney. It just rubs me raw when people are very, very condescending to people who are in custody or who have been charged with crimes. In this country, you're still innocent until proven guilty. I can't stand how prosecutors joke about this stuff. Kamala Harris used to be a prosecutor. The Attorney General in California has just a laundry list of disgusting baggage from her career as a prosecutor that I could talk about for days, but we're not going to do that. Anyways, in 2019, she gave a statement when she was being interviewed. And it was a pretty calloused statement. And so that was published in the Washington Post in 2019. And then they sort of just swept that article under the rug. So they republished it. They updated it, they say. And then they republished it today. And then what happened was the bad quote, the bad language was suddenly left out of the update. Oh, you can't believe that, right? Why would they do that? Why would they publish a story that was accurate? It was factual. They're journalists. This is a fact piece. Why would they update it and get rid of that? Well, it's because it was so bad, right? Obviously, it was so bad that they just had to get rid of it. So when they updated this new piece, let me tell you what happened. And well, let me show you what happened. But before we get there, let me also show you what the Washington Post did once they realized they got caught. So this whole thing was kind of fluid throughout the day. Reason posted the article. They saw the updated article, they posted, and they said, well, this is insane. You can't do this. And then Washington Post really backtracked quickly. And so let me show you what they did, because they know they got caught. They got caught red-handed. It's journalistic, I would say, unethical malpractice. I don't know, is there journalistic malpractice? There's legal malpractice. I would guess that there is some sort of journalistic malpractice, probably not technically, but if there were a categorical violation for problems in journalism, I would put this in whatever that is. So let's take a look at this article over from Reason, written by this guy, Eric Boehm. Did an excellent job, so give him a follow over on Twitter. He says the Washington Post, and he changed his headline also. The original headline was something like, the Washington Post memory hold Kamala Harris's bad joke about inmates begging for food and water. And then he updated the headline from they did it to they tried to, because Washington Post, they know they got caught. They backpedaled massively. So here's the story. At a time when legacy publications are increasingly seen as a playing for one political team or the other, this type of editorial decision will not do anything to fix that perception. So the update was, as of this afternoon, as of today, the Washington Post has updated its websites and the URLs to restore the original version of Kamala Harris's profile that was detailed in the post below. Their statement from the Washington Post says, we should have kept both versions of the story on the Post website, the original and the updated one, rather than redirecting to the updated version, said the Post Vice President for Communication. Quote, we have now done that, and you will see the link to the original at the top in the updated version. Reason has updated the headline to reflect that. So here's what happened. I went and I found both articles. Now, originally, so on the right, you can see this is the new article. Okay, this is what was published today. And the old article was just basically deleted. This is the old article, and it wasn't there anymore. You can see up top here, this was written on July 23rd, 2019. The original one was, and they just updated it a little bit and published it on January 11th, 2021. And so you can see the text looks totally different. Entire block quotes are just removed from the article. And practically what happened is this old web address, so Washington Post /lifestyle/2019, blah, 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 that was just forwarded. So if you went to that old article, you wouldn't see that old article anymore. It just referred you over to this new one. It's called a redirect. And so if you visited that, you could never find the old article. So they just basically deleted it off the internet, and they were forwarding you to this article. Now, when Reason caught them, they went back and they added this link. So you could, in fact, go back and find the original article. And so, it may sound sort of pedantic or like this is a minor thing, but you're going to see why this is so problematic. And let's dive into the article itself. When the Washington Post, this is from Reason, when the Washington Post published a 2019 campaign trail about then presidential hopeful Kamala Harris's close relationship with her sister, it opened with a memorable anecdote in which Harris bizarrely compared the rigors of the campaign to life behind bars. She then proceeded to laugh. She kind of does this cackle thing, and she was laughing at the idea of an inmate begging for a sip of water. In an extremely cringeworthy moment, even by high standards set by Harris's failed presidential campaign. But now the Harris's vice president, that awful moment seemingly vanished from the Post website after the paper updated the piece earlier this month. So here is what Miss Harris actually said. Here is the first 7 paragraphs of that article that was posted on July 23rd. This is the original language. It was the 4th of July, Independence Day. Kamala Harris was explaining to her sister Maya that campaigns are like prisons. She'd been recounting how in the days before the Democratic debate in Miami, life had actually slowed down to a manageable pace. Kamala, Maya, and the rest of the team had spent 3 days prepping for that contest in a beach-facing hotel suite where they closed the curtains to blot out the fun. Not the sun, the fun. And this is written by the Washington Post. But for all the hours of studying policy and practicing the zingers that would supercharge her candidacy, the trip allowed for a break in an otherwise all-encompassing schedule. I actually got sleep, Kamala said, sitting in a Hilton conference room beside her sister and smiling as she recalled walks on the beach with her husband and that one morning Soul Cycle class she was able to take. That kind of stuff, Kamala said between sips of iced tea, which was about bringing a little normal to the days, that was a treat for me. I mean, in some ways it was a treat, Maya said, but not really. It's a treat that a prisoner gets when they ask for a morsel of food, please, Kamala said, shoving her hands forward as if clutching a metal plate, her voice now trembling like an old British man locked in a Dickensian jail cell. And water. I just want water. Your standards really go out the effing window. Kamala burst into laughter. Right? That was Kamala. That wasn't Maya. It's a treat the prisoners rarely get, Kamala said, shoving her hands forward. And water, I just want water. Your standards really go out the effing window. So she's kind of playing one of those scenes, maybe from Oliver Twist, please, sir, can I have some more? One of those. And she's just mocking people who are in prison. I mean, literally. And she put a lot of people in there. She was the attorney general for a long period of time, a prosecutor before that, and has a history of doing that. And then when they're asking her about the rigors of a campaign, when she's at the Hilton, when she's drinking sips of tea, when she has a Soul Cycle class, when she's going for walks on the beach with her husband, she's responding by saying, oh, God, this is so brutal. It's like being in prison, where I'm just like starving for water, starving for food. A morsel of food, please, is what she says, and compares the whole thing to prison. And from this side of the aisle, these are the same people who will go have a conniption fit if you use the wrong pronoun or say something wrong. And she is just really belittling other human beings who have been charged with crimes, many of whom have never been convicted of crimes. They're sitting in custody without ever having a trial or have ever accepted a plea deal. She put them there. They may be released later. They may be found guilty. They may be found innocent. But she is just mocking the hell out of them, just sort of laughing that they're begging for food and water and comparing all of that to her posh campaign lifestyle. So just beyond disgusting behavior. Now that she's in office and they are, probably going to be talking about criminal justice reform. They're going to be trying to pass some bills. They're talking a lot about racial equity, racial equality, and all of these things. This is a bad statement. You don't want this floating around the internet. And the Washington Post knew that, and they did everything they could to get rid of it. What happened to the old version, they say? The headline for that 18-month article still appeared on Terrace's page on the Post website with the original date it was published, but clicking the link redirects the users to a new version published this month, the version that omits Harris's awful commentary about campaigns and prisons. Other links to the original piece now also redirect to the sanitized version. So they're just eliminating this off of the entire page. Elizabeth Nolan Brown, for example, highlighted the terrorist profile of Harris on the July 24th Reason Roundup. Click through that link, however, and you won't find Harris's, quote, inartful joke, a joke about inmates dying of thirst. Reason dug into this a little bit further, and they asked the Post why Harris feature, why it was updated, if the paper could point to other examples of, quote, updating political features to remove details that show officials in an unflattering light. Like, who else are you puffing up with your very, very, objective journalism there, Washington Post? As a part of an online series rolled out before President Joe Biden's and Harris's inauguration, they're saying, quote, we repurposed and updated some of our strong biographical pieces about both political figures. Molly Gannon Conway, the Post communications manager, told Reason via email on Monday, quote, the profile of Maya Harris was updated with new reporting as noted online using the existing URL. The original story remains available in print. So they scrub it off the internet. You can get it on if it's printed. So if you have a newsstand that has news articles from July of 2019 still floating around, you can go get that article, but you can't find it on the internet. Conway did not include any other examples of the content that had been similarly updated. She also did not respond to a question about whether Harris's team had requested the change. The vice president's office did not return a request for comment. So who asked for that? Who pinged them and said remove that? They did remove it. They got busted. They have no good explanation for it other than it's still available in print. Sometimes we update our stories. Okay. And this is supposed to be from an objective journalist, an objective newspaper called the Washington Post. The question here was, what would they have done for Mike Pence? If Mike Pence had said something so asinine, would they have updated that? Would they have done that for anybody else? Or is it just this new administration? Is the Washington Post playing sides? Are they playing favorites? Are they independent journalists? Or are these just the partisan hacks that we know they are? I think we all know the story. We all know what's going on here. And as I mentioned, I'm not a journalist, but I know a lot of other journalists are. And here's what their responses are. Andrew Sullivan, which is no right-winger either, says, amazing how rigged the Washington Post now is. This is Pravda-level propaganda. It is 100%. They're just eliminating stuff. Robbie Soav says, incredible journalist malpractice. There you go. There's that word. On the part of the Washington Post, they deleted an anecdote from an old profile of Kamala Harris that cast the Veep in an unflattering light. I don't buy the stated excuse at all. Neither does Eric Boehm, who wrote the article. The Washington Post, the Ministry of Truth. See the difference? The most terrifying part of the comment from the paper's PR person that the original story remains available in print until we can scoop those up too. Am I right? That comes from Alex Berenson. We have another one from Lee Fang. The Washington Post goes back and deletes the opening of an article about Kamala showing her mocking prisoners begging for water. Why? No explanation, just a helpful airbrush for a powerful politician. This is all it is. So, you just have to understand that right now. And this is why people are so, I think, up in arms about some of the censorship that's going on, is because there really is no other medium for a lot of individuals who want objective journalism. They just want the truth. You have literal behind-the-scenes journalists, independent individuals who are supposed to be holding our government accountable, aren't doing it. They're actually helping them clear off their problematic records so that it doesn't look bad when they're trying to get other stuff passed. Wild, right? So, I don't know why you would trust anything out of the Washington Post. I don't ever. And, I quote from them and I link to them very, very frequently, but you got to just understand that when you're absorbing this media, when you're absorbing the news in this day and age, it's all gone through multiple other filters before it ever hits you, as we're seeing here. And thankfully, you've got some really awesome people over at Reason who are looking into this and holding them accountable. This is what journalism is supposed to be, right? And they're just not doing it over at the Washington Post. So democracy dies in darkness, but I think they're part of the mechanism that's killing it by not holding our politicians accountable. Very wild stuff. The next story that we all probably have heard about at this point in time is the National Guard story. So, 25,000 National Guard troops were brought into Washington to create this spectacle show of force to sort of really make sure that America knows just how dangerous Donald Trump was and how dangerous his supporters are because of what happened at the Capitol Hill riots. This is so problematic. Look what you made us do. You made us bring in all these beautiful men and women into the Capitol Mall, and we can't even have a real inauguration. Nobody was going to show up anyways. They knew that. That's why they put a bunch of flags around. But nobody was going to show up. No, but their excuse was, it's COVID and it's dangerous. So we need all of these troops here to make sure that the presidential installation goes according to plan. And as soon as they were done with the troops, as soon as the spectacle was over, and I'm not saying that the troops are a spectacle at all. I'm saying these are good men and women who were there to do their job. They're being exploited by our incompetent congressional leaders, which are all now Democrats. They control both houses and the White House. So if the buck stops with anybody, it's going to be with them. They had control when these guards people were there. And as soon as their usefulness expired, they literally threw them out. They threw them into a parking garage. This was brought to my attention from Laura Seligman. Says breaking, thousands of guardsmen were forced to vacate congressional grounds on Thursday. They're now taking their rest breaks outside and in nearby parking garage. So they just literally threw them out. This story came over from Politico, and you can see, let's run through it. We feel incredibly betrayed. Thousands of guardsmen forced to vacate the Capitol. All National Guard troops were told to vacate the Capitol and nearby congressional buildings on Thursday and to set up mobile command centers outside or in nearby hotels, another guardsman confirmed. They were told to take their breaks during their 12-hour shifts outside and in parking garages. Top lawmakers from both parties took to Twitter last night. They were decrying it. And I saw this. This was sort of an onslaught. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. I saw Kyrsten Sinema here in Arizona. All the Democrats got a memo. Hey, you need to go on Twitter and disavow this thing, right? It's a PR statement. They're going to come out because everybody knows the Democrats are in control of Congress now. The two senators from Georgia got sworn in, and Kamala Harris's replacement got sworn in. So Schumer and all of the Democrats were really very upset about this. Senator Martin Heinrich from New Mexico said the situation was being resolved and that the guardsmen would be able to return indoors later in the night. Thousands of guardsmen were allowed back in the Capitol on Thursday night, hours after the U.S. Capitol police officials ordered them to vacate the facilities, sending them outdoors or to nearby parking garages after 2 weeks of pulling security duty after the riot. One unit that had been resting in Dickinson Senate office building was abruptly told to vacate on Thursday, according to one guardsman. The group was forced to rest in a nearby parking garage without internet reception, with just one electrical outlet and one bathroom with 2 stalls for 5,000 troops, the person said. Temperatures in Washington were in the low 40s by nightfall. Yesterday, dozens of senators and congressmen walked down our lines, taking photos, shaking our hands, and thanking us for our service. Within 24 hours, they had no further use for us and banished us to the corner of a parking garage. We feel incredibly betrayed, said one guardsman. They really, and then another guardsman actually was very accepting of this, says there really may be an important reason for us to vacate, and it just hasn't been well communicated yet. So troops are concerned about being packed in tight quarters, limited bathroom access during a pandemic. 100 guardsmen have tested positive for COVID-19, according to 2 guardsmen. Spokesman previously declined to provide a specific number for troops who have tested positive for the virus. So just par for the course, right? Government is just, in my opinion, largely incompetent and sometimes just downright evil. I don't know where this order came from. Who said that they needed to vacate and just get the hell out of here, essentially, is how that order sounds like it was. Go figure it out. You're grown men. Your job is done. Go find a parking garage. Go find a hotel with the rest of your 24,999 fellow National Guards people. Thanks. We're done with you. Get the hell out of here. And so, I mean, pretty standard stuff, in my opinion. Not surprising at all. When this first went down, we were talking about, the massive influx of troops, and they were all sleeping on the floors. We played pictures of that, and I was wondering, why don't they have, what are they doing? This is our military. We're expect our military to distribute vaccines to 370 million Americans, and they can't even bring cots and living, what are they called? Living. I'm trying to think of the P word. Well, whatever. Stuff that you need to live that are available for them, because you're moving masses of bodies, tons of people from one location to another location. You would expect that they would have a place to sleep and a way to connect to the internet and a way to communicate with people and a place to use the restroom. And so, on one side of the argument, you can say, well, they are moving quickly. They needed to establish something, rapidly. And so all of the other resources are going to show up at some point in time, but they've been there for 2 weeks. They don't have an exit plan for 25,000 people. Nobody thought about this. And who gave the order to just throw them out on their feet? I want to know who that was. Was that the Capitol Hill Police? Who was the person who did that? And were they authorized by somebody in the Senate leadership or the Sergeant of Arms in either one of the houses or the Senate? Be very curious. Here are some more pictures from the article, just outrageous. Here you can see they're literally at the bottom of a parking garage, all just stacked on top of one another. No social distancing. Some have masks, some don't, and they're just sort of in an incubator for disease and COVID, because there's no restrooms, there's no place to brush your teeth, there's nowhere to sanitize anything. I mean, just a disaster. Yesterday, dozen of senators, they walked out within 24 hours. They had no further use for us, Politico says. And so they're in a parking garage. You see V5 right here on the pillar in the parking garage. You got some caution tape around, men and women laying on the ground on just solid concrete. V5. So if you're looking for where your other soldiers are, where your fellow, where your brethren are, you can just report over here, W3. Hey, I'm over by W3. Where are you at? I'm by U4. Oh, I parked over by V5. That's where I'm laying down. So it's just embarrassing that our government was just so incompetent, but it's just par for the course. Someone is getting fired, says Rasmussen reports. National Guardsmen were allowed back into the Capitol after being banished. And some people are trying to do something about it. Looks like, according to this fellow, Brandon Straka over on Twitter, somebody we know, Donald Trump here, according to Brandon, says, "Thank you, President Trump, for offering your beautiful hotel for our troops to sleep in after the Biden administration put them in a car garage like dogs. Even after leaving the office, you're still leading better than Biden and Harris. Thank you for respecting our military when Democrats don't." So, I don't know if this is a recent picture of Donald Trump. I haven't fact checked this. I don't know what's going on with that, but I did see this posted over by Donald Trump Jr., who still has a Twitter account. He says the Trump D.C. hotel is open for the D.C. Police Department. Strange that our wonderful and totally unbiased press corps had zero questions for the press secretary on the National Guard troops being moved out of the Congressional building into an open, cold garage. If Trump were president, they would be outraged. So yet again, another media sweeping under the rug of hard questions. Nobody wants to ask about it, but I do. Here's what Donald Trump Jr. posted, and this is the D.C. police hanging out at Trump Hotel. All right, so plenty of room, plenty of space. Trump delivers. Yet again. All right, so let's change gears. President Biden again signed another document, signed H.R. 335 into law, clearing the way for Lloyd Austin to serve as the next Secretary of Defense. I look forward to working with him to lead the military, revitalize our alliances, and ensure the safety of the American people. Now, there was some controversy around this. Hey, Biden's wearing a mask. Hey, look at that. So he is complying from time to time. There was some controversy around Lloyd Austin being sworn in as the first Secretary of Defense who is, no controversy over the fact that he's an African American, the first black defense secretary. That's not what I'm talking about. The controversy was that he was granted a waiver from a law that requires a Secretary of Defense to wait 7 years after they were active duty before taking the job. I mean, the Secretary of Defense is a civilian position. And so what the goal here was that they don't want people who are just former military to just kind of swoop into a civilian position. They wanted 7 years, go be a civilian for some period of time. Secretary of Defense is dealing with civilian issues. You don't want, a war hungry general, hypothetically, to come over from the military and then sort of run the Secretary of Defense cabinet position as a war-hungry, military general. And so there was a specific waiver that was granted in this case. There was some controversy about whether this was going to be allowed or not, whether Congress was going to, vote him in because of the fact of the proximity is so close. He just basically left the military back in 2016, hasn't been the 7 years, but he got approved. Here is the story. It says the Senate confirms Lloyd Austin to be the first black defense secretary. Senate voted on Friday to confirm Joe Biden's defense secretary pick. He retired in 2016, and he had to be granted a waiver from a law requiring a defense secretary to wait 7 years after active duty service before taking the job. The House approved the waiver Thursday afternoon, and the Senate approved the measure. So Thursday's votes cleared the way for final confirmation. The vote was 893-2. Senators Mike Lee of Utah, Josh Hawley were the only two no votes, probably objecting because of that rule. Confirmation of the secretary gives Biden another key department chief in place as the congressional leaders attempt to move swiftly to confirm cabinet members and so on. They confirmed the first cabinet nominee yesterday, which was Avril Haines, and we talked about her as well. Here is Lloyd Austin. He's an American, retired 4-star Army general who served as the 12th commander of the United States Command, first black commander of CENTCOM. On December 8th, incoming president announced his intention to nominate Austin as the Secretary of Defense. So age 67, awards, combat action badge, expert infantry badge, 505th Infantry Regiment, United States Forces. Over in Iraq, he held that command. So Joe Biden's got another individual in his cabinet, and good luck to Lloyd Austin. We also want to talk about the military arm of the intelligence community because a new story came out. Some documents are being unclassified, and people are combing through them. This story was a little bit interesting from a privacy perspective, from a criminal defense perspective, and so I wanted to share this with you. I learned about this from Charlie Savage over on Twitter. Says, the military arm of the intelligence community has searched for information about Americans' movement without a warrant. What? How can they do that? In a commercially available database of smartphone app locational data per a DIA memo for Ron Wyden. So Ron Wyden's a senator, and I think he's a senator. Let's see here. Well, he's somebody in the government. He asked a bunch of questions. They responded. That document was unclassified. Building on a previous good reporting on the topic of smartphone app makers selling their users' locational data via brokers and using it without warrants, Wyden is going to introduce a bill to close this loophole in post-Carpenter Fourth Amendment law. So let's take a look at what they're talking about here. This came from the New York Times. Intelligence analysts use U.S. smartphone location data without warrant, a memo shows. The disclosure comes amid growing legislative scrutiny of how the government uses commercially available location data. A military arm of the intelligence community buys commercially available databases containing location data from smartphones. There was an unclassified memo that came out of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and they're saying that they search for the movements of Americans within these commercial databases, 5 investigations over the past 2.5 years, according to Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat over from Oregon. So he's a senator. Government's use of commercial databases and location information has come under increased scrutiny. Many smartphone apps log their users' locations, and the app makers can aggregate the data and sell it to brokers who can then resell it, according to the government. So many people don't realize that this is even happening. I was listening to some presentation, 2-3 years ago, so this is probably a little bit outdated. But even at that point in time, we were learning that essentially you can go buy data from any one of these companies that does anything online, essentially. And the analogy that they were using is they said, hey, if you went over to Google and you search for something, let's say you search something bad, how to blow up something, right? And what you could do is Google will hash all of that data. So they'll sort of encrypt it, so you really don't know who it is, and then they'll sell you that search data. So you can go in, you can't identify who the person is, you have to sort of say, okay, I want to know how many people searched how to blow up whatever. You could get those hashed, you basically get an identity connected with a search term that would be hashed, that would be essentially encrypted, so you couldn't know who it was. And if you had a big enough and robust enough data set, you could take that hash and compare it and sort of reverse engineer, correlate them with another data set where you did have user information, and you could basically fill in the gaps. It's a long way of saying that you could with enough data and with enough power, you could take a list of people who've searched something, find out whatever it is they searched for that's problematic, and then identify that person based on the search. Right. And I'm not a technical, I am sort of technical, but this whole thing I would have had to, sort of outsource to experts to figure all this out. And that was the long and short of it, that sort of anything that you can do, you can buy that data in bulk. Now, they wouldn't just be buying the data of how to blow up whatever. They'd be buying data that included, where is this restaurant, and how do I get a stain out of that, and how do I do this, and all, like, you get everything. But if you could decipher it and fill in the gaps well enough, which apparently is not that hard to do, then you can dial in and look at specific keywords, specific searches, and then connect that to specific people. So extremely powerful, and certainly concerning from a defense attorney's perspective, because now we need to know about, well, if they identify somebody that way, what's our defense, and how do we show that we're sort of mismatching data, and we don't want our client going to jail for something that is just a bunch of data thrown together. I mean, that's very tenuous at best. So they're talking about that same concept here. They're saying here they're just gobbling up all of the location data and all of that aggregate data, and they're selling it to brokers who can then resell it. It's been known that the government sometimes uses such data for law enforcement purposes on domestic soil. Wall Street Journal reported last year that law enforcement agencies use such data, found 2 instances where Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement were using this very data. They used it in patrolling the border and investigating immigrants who were later arrested. This disclosure sheds light on an emerging loophole in privacy law during the digital age. In a landmark 2018 ruling known as the Carpenter decision, the Supreme Court held that the Constitution requires the government to obtain a warrant to compel phone companies to turn over location data about their customers. But the government can instead buy similar data from a broker and does not believe that it needs a warrant to do so. So the Supreme Court said, no, you need a warrant, right? Previously, it's okay. If you're looking for data for non-U.S. citizens and it's coming through international borders, then you can just sort of eavesdrop on that. Not even a big deal. But if it involves a U.S. citizen, that's where we got into this whole General Flynn thing with the masking and the unmasking. And you have to really protect U.S. civilians because we've got a right to privacy here. We're citizens. It's very important to us. And now the government doesn't need to go through the warrant requirement. They can just go buy the data because it's commercially available, and then they can exploit it that way. And Supreme Court said, nope, you need a warrant. The government said, no, we don't think we do, in fact. This is the unclassified memo over from the intelligence agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, clarification on information brief during the December briefing on the CTD. Question 1. So this is where Senator Wyden is asking the questions. Down here, question 2. Please confirm that the Defense Intelligence Agency has interpreted the Supreme Court's Carpenter decision as only applying to location data obtained through compulsory legal process, and that Carpenter does not apply to data purchased by the government. Okay, so they're saying you're using this exclusion, right? And they're saying, yes, we confirm that the DIA does not construe the Carpenter decision to require a judicial warrant endorsing purchase or use of commercially available data for intelligence purposes. So it says, yep, we can just go buy them. Carpenter involved administrative subpoena for law enforcement. And they go on to explain what the basis is for it. But they're basically saying before they get into the nuts and bolts of how it all works is, you're exactly right. We know what the Supreme Court said. We're not following that because we found a different way to get the data rather than just going and subpoenaing that data. They just go buy it commercially. They don't need to go get a warrant. They just go buy it on the open market. And so Senator Wyden, to his credit, is going to be seeing what they can do to introduce a new bill to close this loophole. because it's a pretty big one. You could drive a truck through it, and it's pretty dangerous as well. So, all right. So that is what the Defense Intelligence Agency is doing. That's what Lloyd Austin is going to be sort of, I would say, closely related to that. So we'll see what he does if any of this stuff gets closed up or if it just gets opened up more. And, now they're going to be going after the extremists. So we'll see what this looks like. A little bit of troubling stuff. Let's change gears. Let's talk about the impeachment. We've been wondering what's been going on with that because Donald Trump was impeached on January 13th. And it's just been kind of sitting in the House of Representatives for some period of time. Joe Biden got inaugurated. Big question in everybody's mind was what's going to happen? Are they going to impeach him? Are they not? We've talked about it sometime here on this program where other individuals are saying it's unconstitutional. Once a president has been removed from office, there's nothing else to impeach. They're not in office anymore. Impeachment is for removal. And the response to that has largely been, no. It's more than just removal. It's to preclude that individual from running from office again. And so they're still going to move forward with the impeachment. And we also heard from Joe Biden saying, unity. This is a time for unity, America. We want healing. We want love. Come together. No more red versus blue. We want to just settle this and just move on. In his totally ridiculous inaugural address, where there was very little truth that gave Chris Wallace tingles up his leg, it was a bunch of baloney because the Democrats are still moving forward with the impeachment. No healing, no love. It's fine. Impeach away. See how this works out for him again. It failed the first time. I highly suspect that it's going to fail again. But let's take a look and see what they're talking about. Yesterday, we played on this channel. Nancy Pelosi was saying, oh, no. We need to impeach in order to create unity. You see how that works? If we don't impeach, there's going to be more disunity. So by impeaching, those 74 million Trump supporters who are most of them like diehard Trump fans, if we don't impeach them, this is going to get worse. So we need impeachment for unity. And we're all kind of scratching our heads going, that's weird. So you just want to kind of continue the fight, even though the guy in charge, the guy who you worked really hard to elect, he's saying publicly that he wants unity. Now, Joe Biden could have easily come out today or yesterday or any day and said, I think this impeachment stuff is ridiculous. It's nonsense. No, thanks. I really want unity. I'm standing by unity. That's not going to happen, though. And Chuck Schumer in the Senate is confirming that today.
Now, as I mentioned, the Senate will also conduct a second impeachment trial for Donald Trump. I've been speaking to the Republican leader about the timing and duration of the trial, but make no mistake, a trial will be held in the United States Senate. And there will be a vote on whether to convict the president. I have spoken to Speaker Pelosi, who informed me that the articles will be delivered to the Senate on Monday.
All right, so the articles are going to go over on Monday. He says there's going to be an impeachment trial. There's going to be a vote on whether we convict him or not. The Politico was reporting an initial timeline, but that looks like it changed a little bit. They were saying that since it's going to be delivered on Monday, the article is going to be read on the floor. February 4th, Trump's answer is going to be due. Trump's pretrial brief will be due. And then on February 13th, the House submits a rebuttal pretrial brief. So here's what they're talking about. And this timeline, it looks like it's changing over here on my next slide. Let's see here. Yeah. So it's going to change, but let me just explain sort of what each one of these things are. So anytime you're in a lawsuit, think of the article of impeachment that we talked about as the complaint. That is what they're upset about. They submit the complaint. They're going to read the article on the floor. It's very similar to like an indictment. If you ever get charged with a crime or indicted, it's kind of what that process looks like. So they're just saying, this is what we're mad about. This is the basis for bringing the lawsuit. They swear it in and they say, we've got jurisdiction. It's just formal stuff. So then the next due date is Trump is going to respond. So Trump will his attorneys presumably will draft a written response. Then on the next court date, there's going to be a pretrial brief that's due. So Donald Trump will sort of brief out the issues, say, here are my defenses. Here are my arguments. Here's my legal team. Here's the basis of what I'm going to be discussing. And then the House will submit a response since the House impeached him. Then the House submits a rebuttal pretrial brief and just sort of these back and forth motions until we get an actual trial. And it looks like this is an updated timeline. It says Schumer, this is according to Igor Bobik over on Twitter, says Schumer says the Senate has reached an agreement to delay the impeachment trial in order to allow for action on nominations and the COVID relief. Managers would read the article on January 25th. So it's a little bit different. Trial formally starting the week of February 8th. Okay, so that's actually a little bit sooner. So it looks like we're still trying to figure out the timeline. McConnell spokesman calls a trial delay a win for due process and for fairness, and that's nice of McConnell. Due process and fairness. You may recall here, this is what they were upset about. Donald Trump said some scary words, apparently. This is the screenshot from the article of impeachment. On January 6th, they're upset. He repeatedly made false statements. Presidential election results were fraud, shouldn't be asserted. This is what they're upset about. And then he underlined here in red, quote, "We won this election and we won it by a landslide." So that was problematic for them. I mean, that's in the article. Very upset. They also are upset about the fact that he said, quote, "If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore." So very, very scary words, political words, whoa, that's not good. Nobody else has ever said anything like that. Even though we on this channel, we impeached Kamala Harris. I mean, we showed you exactly what she said. She was raising funds for people who were burning down police buildings. If that's not insurrection, if that's not incitement, I don't know what the heck is. But apparently there are double standards. Chuck Schumer was continuing on in the Senate saying that they're going to impeach him. Here's his justification for it. Like I said, many of us were talking about this idea that it's unconstitutional. He's not in office anymore. And here's what Chuck Schumer says in response to that.
Now, I've heard some of my Republican colleagues argue that this trial would be unconstitutional because Donald Trump is no longer in office, an argument that has been roundly repudiated, debunked by hundreds of constitutional scholars, left, right, and center, and defies basic common sense. It makes no sense whatsoever that a president or any official could commit a heinous crime against our country and then be permitted to resign so as to avoid accountability and a vote to disbar them from future office. Makes no sense.
Really?
Regardless, the purveyors of this unusual argument are trying to delay the inevitable.
All right, so let's just think if there are other remedies here. So he's saying, look, a president has the ability to resign and they could just be not held accountable. They can come into office, they could do a bunch of just horrendous things, then they could resign and just kind of get away with it. And is that accurate? Is there anything else that can happen? So let's just take Donald Trump as an example. Okay, they're saying he did something really bad. They're saying he incited an insurrection, essentially, is what's in that document. And because he said a couple bad things, now you can have a disagreement over the evidence or whatever, but the allegation here is he incited something, right? He incited violence, or he was seditious or treasonous or whatever it is. I still don't know what statute he violated because they didn't put that in their document. Their document was 4 pages. So not a lot of evidence, a couple quotes, a couple very broad stroke statements, no real identification of what high crime or misdemeanor he literally violated. But presumably, let's say that they couldn't move forward with this impeachment and they know that he committed a high crime or misdemeanor. And what can you do about that? Well, we have criminal laws in this country, so you could charge a president with a crime, and that's a legal thing that can happen. Donald Trump's not even the president anymore. So if they're saying that he committed a crime, a prosecutor could charge him with a crime. They could have the Justice Department investigate him and charge him with a federal crime. If that were the case, they could charge him with local level misdemeanor crimes. So there is actually a remedy. Donald Trump didn't pardon himself on the way out and sort of, escape liability. He didn't do any of that. If he would have, that would have been challenged also in a court of law, and we would have seen how that would have shaken out, but we didn't see that. So is Chuck Schumer accurate when there's kind of, it just makes common sense? Like, this is the only remedy we have. No. You also have criminal remedies. He's not the president anymore. You could charge him with a crime. And there's no statute of limitations issue here. This just happened a couple weeks ago. So, they can't say that this is going to expire tomorrow. And so this is our only recourse. They could charge him with crimes if they wanted to. But I tell you this, be very, very weak cases. And they know that. So they're going to be trying this impeachment stuff. What else could they do? Well, they could sue him civilly. Somebody could sue him in civil court and say, you caused the death of my somebody, or you were the one responsible for this, and I'm going to blame you and sue you for a lot of money. He's got a lot of money, billions of dollars. He's got deep pockets. So is there any lawyer in the country who's going to be willing to go take those claims and sue him for these things? Probably at some point in time. But that's another remedy. So you could go after him civilly. And also, have you forgotten about the fact that if he wanted to run for office again, it would be the people who would be voting for him. And that's kind of the ultimate check. If the people are really so disgusted with Donald Trump, if everybody's really up in arms about this Capitol Hill thing, and they just want to make sure that he never runs again and he's never in office again, then the people can vote. If 4 years from now, the people say, you know what, I think that was all a bunch of stuff and it was all manufactured and it was all, blown out of proportion by the media and they were all hyperventilating over this stuff, we're going to vote for him anyways. Okay, well, then that just sort of is a political answer. We talk about this all the time. Courts don't like to get involved in political issues. That's why many of Donald Trump's lawsuits, all of them, were unsuccessful, because they were trying to bring in a political claim into a court of law. Judges don't like it. And they say, hey, go deal with that in the political world. If you're upset about taxes, don't sue the federal government about taxes in our courtroom. That's a political problem. Go organize a protest, go organize a voting block and change the law. But you can't sue about that. Same issue here. If the people are really so disgusted about Donald Trump, if they're really so upset about the Capitol Hill stuff and about his incitement, then they just don't have to vote for him again. But I think they know that none of these options are particularly good for them. I think they know that most of Trump's base doesn't blame him for the Capitol Hill stuff. I think the Capitol Hill stuff, just to reiterate, was horrendous and disgusting, but I don't think that Donald Trump caused it. I don't think that his language was responsible for that. Maybe contributed to some of it. I think all of our language is pretty hot right now, but to say that he was the but-for cause, in other words, if Donald Trump wouldn't have, said that final sentence in his speech, that this wouldn't have happened, is just not in evidence. There's no facts about that. In fact, there's other evidence that reverses that. They're saying that the Capitol was being breached before Donald Trump was even done speaking. So you can't make that causal connection there. They're trying to do it, but they know it's not going to work. That's why in criminal law, I don't think that he would be convicted of that. I don't think that they would win a civil lawsuit against him, just like they're not going to win the impeachment against him. So they know that. They know that their case is very weak here. They're trying to capitalize on a political movement, on the American people's disgust about what happened at the Capitol. They're trying to just sort of take a small isolated incident, include Trump, therefore include all of the MAGA supporters. Anybody who's even been sympathetic to Trump can now be lumped into that same bucket, and they can use that to achieve their political ends. And they know 4 years from now, if Donald Trump got a hankering to run again, he would be a threat. He'd probably be able to clear out the entire primary field and may beat Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. He could be literally back in office real soon. Okay, the American people are going to get real tired of all this Biden stuff. And Donald Trump, who feels like he got shafted, I think he'd be a very, very real threat in 2024. And they know that. And they're doing everything they can right now to stop that from happening. They want to make sure he's disqualified because they know better. And they're not stupid. Let's take a look at the Constitution. This is what it says about impeachment. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office. And so this is what many people on the right are talking about. Not extend further, right? How can it extend further than removal from office? He's not in office anymore. So if you impeach him, isn't that extending further than removal, right? He's not in office. And so what they're saying is, no, but you can't stop here at this and. You have to say disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor. So that's what they want to lean on. They're saying, okay, it shall not extend further than to disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor and trust. But the party convicted shall be subject to indictment, trial, judgment, punishment according to the law. So a lot of other remedies down here that they can exploit, but they're just not, they're not doing it because they know that there's no basis there. Okay, we saw this. We talked about this article previously on this channel. This came from J. Michael Luddig, served as the judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit for 15 years. Is that 15 years? For a long time. Once Trump leaves office, the Senate can't hold an impeachment trial, he says. The sequencing of the House impeachment proceedings before Trump's departure and following a new president, perhaps a month later, raised the question, can a former president be impeached? And he says the Constitution itself answers this question clearly. No, he cannot. Once the term ends on January 20th, Congress loses its constitutional authority to continue impeachment proceedings against him, even if the House has already approved the articles. So, pretty interesting here. I'll be curious to see what happens. I thought that maybe we would see a stall of the impeachment proceedings. I thought that they were going to say, well, because it's a weak case, I don't think he's going to get impeached. But and he's going to be a president who beats impeachment twice now. So he'll go down in history as being impeached twice. And I could be wrong about this. Maybe they'll muster up enough Republicans to stab him in the back. But it will be something where he'll be impeached twice and avoid a conviction twice. Kind of a good history for if you're going to be impeached twice, you want to make sure you're acquitted twice. And so if he is, let's say, actually convicted in this, I think he could file a lawsuit and take this up to the Supreme Court and say they didn't have the power to do that. What do you say, Supreme Court? So we may have Donald Trump for a long time as a result of this impeachment. I was thinking they were just going to say, all right, we know our case is weak. We're just going to leave it alone in the sake of unity. Just like Uncle Joe said, we want to be unified. If they stuck by that, they wouldn't open this can of worms. Now what they're going to do is just alienate another 74 million people. They're all going to be angry about this, or a significant portion of them will be. And they're just going to continue to poke the hornet's nest because they just can't get enough of Trump. And I think they're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They probably know that politically this is not a wise thing, but their base is just so visceral, so angry that this is what they want. And, they get pretty excited about this stuff. Let's listen over to Chuck Schumer as he closes out. And remember, they get excited about this stuff. Here's Chuck.
The fact is, the House will deliver the article of impeachment to the Senate. The Senate will conduct a trial of the impeachment of Donald Trump. It will be a full trial. It will be a fair trial. But make no mistake, there will be a trial, and when that trial ends, senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection against the United States.
All right, so just allow me to be a 12-year-old boy for a second, all right? Did you see his face when he said that? He said incited the erection. He goes, whoops, whoops. What I meant to say, incited the insurrection. But I think he's pretty much accurate. A lot of the Democrats, a lot of people, as soon as you say the impeachment word, boom, they get pretty excited about it, if you know what I mean. Let's listen in one more time. Here is Chuck Schumer.
Senators will have to decide.
Here he is one more time.
Senators will have to decide.
Watch his face.
If they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection against the United States.
All right, so they're going to just be having a good time with this amongst themselves for some period of time. At least the far left is. They can't get enough of this stuff. So that's going to be fun. February, my friends, is going to be impeachment month. I know probably people want to get over it. Probably don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm going to go hard on this impeachment stuff. I am so excited about impeaching as many people as we possibly can. And if they're going to impeach Donald Trump, anybody who's closely connected to this impeachment proceeding, any one of these Democrats who gets up there and runs their mouth about what a dangerous individual he is, we're just going to have fun with that. We're just going to go through. We're going to clip everything. I might just draft as many impeachment articles as we can. We're going to have an impeachment party all of February. I hope you join us. Get your own impeachment docs. I got a very nice message from a viewer over in Israel who is may up in the air, maybe working on a web app or an application to just automatically generate impeachment documents. So, folks, we have some serious brain power right now just churning out this impeachment party stuff. We're going to impeach everybody. It's going to be a field day. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. So stick around. February is going to be lit. Can't wait for it. We have another story coming over from Maricopa County. Maricopa County is preparing for a new audit of the election results. Many people yesterday and kind of throughout this week were like, Rob, hello, what are you doing? You live in Maricopa County. Why aren't you paying attention to Maricopa County? There's pretty important stuff going on. All right, we're getting to it. It says here, we're preparing for a new audit of election results. Here's how it might go. The story came over from Jen Fifield over at the Arizona Republic. It says Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, they're preparing to release election material to the Arizona Senate in response to its subpoenas so that the Senate can perform an audit. The supervisors said in a statement on Wednesday, they will continue to negotiate with the Senate on how to respond to the subpoenas, while Senate Karen Fann put out a statement on Wednesday, which I'm going to show you, that said the Senate and supervisors had come to an agreement. The announcement of a potential agreement comes the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated, as a legal battle between the supervisors and the Senate lasted more than a month. So here's what they're looking for. A list provided by the Senate Republicans show what could be included in the agreement. It is included but not limited to: the county will provide images of the ballots. An audit will be performed using a logic and accuracy test on a random sample of tabulation machines and a review of the source code on a random sample of tabulation machines. The audit will only examine material related to the 2020 election. The auditor will be certified by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission and will have access to random sample of desktops and servers and routers in a way that wouldn't disrupt any county operations. Only authorized parties would have access to the data or the materials. By the county, the parties will work together in good faith to resolve any issues that arise. And this was posted on Inauguration Day for immediate release from the president, Fan over with the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors or on about an agreement on this. We have here, says, I'm pleased to announce that after a hard-fought battle to seek information on behalf of the American voters in the 2020 elections, we have reached a favorable agreement with the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Not only has the board agreed to turn over all the relevant information we sought in our subpoena so that we may perform an audit, but they also acknowledge that the legislature is a sovereign power of the state and that the county is a political subdivision, and as such, the legislature has the constitutional and statutory authority to issue subpoenas. Chairman Jack Sellers was instrumental in fighting for this agreement. I appreciate his efforts. I look forward to continuing our work to restore our integrity and faith in the election process. So good stuff. We're going to see what ultimately comes of that. We'll continue to follow along. Pretty interesting how this whole thing unfolded, isn't it? The original Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, when they got subpoenas from the Arizona state legislature, they said, thanks for those, but we're not going to do anything with them. We appreciate you sending them, but we're just going to vote 4-1. You don't get any of this data. Soon as Inauguration Day hits, boom. Okay, let's come to an agreement. Joe Biden's in the White House. Now we can talk. So that's kind of just how you're seeing these things settle out. As soon as we get more information on what the audit shows, we'll take a look. And, I don't think this is going to be satisfying to anybody, quite frankly. I think that if they find something, they're going to try to explain it away. If they don't find something, they're going to say the audit was not deep enough. And regardless of what comes out of this, it's not going to change who's in the White House today, although it is going to help move this issue forward. I think that this is outstanding that they're continuing to pry and investigate and dig on this stuff. I've been saying this for a long time. Many people have been asking on this show, well, what's the solution? What's the answer? You're looking at it. This is it. This is it right here. In Arizona, we have a GOP. Many people sort of scoff at and they say, they're a bunch of wacko Arizonans out there in the Midwest in the desert with their cowboys and their horses and their guns and their lassos. But that's only half true. we have some good stuff going on here. We have individuals with the Arizona GOP who are very aggressive, and they're going to be getting to the bottom of this, and I will support their efforts to do so. And I think that this should happen locally in all of the other jurisdictions. And the only way that happens is if you get on the horn, you get connected with your local representatives, and you say you want this done. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. So kudos to Senator Karen Fann for leading the charge. Kudos to Chairman Jack Sellers for getting it done. And thank you to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors for finally just allowing our legislature to do the job. Way to go. Thanks for doing it a couple weeks late, but thanks for doing it nonetheless. All right, so that's it for the content of the program. Let's dive into the Super Chats. We're getting started off with, normally it's Wolfgang Deo, but not today. We got Sniper Jared in the house starting us off, says, I beat Wolfgang Deo to the punch, and hi, Faith. We also have another one from Ditka's Bears, says, Biden is useless. Very big, nice, fat super chat. And he doesn't even need the full super chat. For those of you who don't know, sort of the higher value of the super chat, the more message you get to put in there. Ditka's Bears doesn't even need that. He just short and sweet and to the point, very pithy, as Bill O'Reilly would say. Biden is useless. It's looking to be that way. Good to see you there, Ditkas. We got Beth Coddington says, hi, Robert, Faith, and Ma. I have a confession. I had huge laughs at your expense. I listened to your videos at 0.25 and 0.5 speed. It was hilarious. You sounded drunk and stoned. I knew you wouldn't mind. No, I don't mind that at all. I listen to some people like that. And I don't listen to anybody slow. I usually listen to them at like 1.5 or sometimes even 1.75 speed. And so it doesn't sound like they're drunk or stoned. It sounds like they're on methamphetamines or cocaine. So I understand what you're talking about. And, thank you to YouTube for helping us enjoy some content. Thanks, Beth. You can slow this one even down further and see how that sounds at slow speed. We have another one. Hey, look who it is. Wolfgang Deo's in the house. Says, I stepped into my GOP office, ended up speaking with someone on the phone for an hour about everything. GOP volunteer thanked me. I'm sure they did. Wolfgang. I hope that you got through somebody's thick skull over there and that they do something about what you were talking about. We have Wolfgang Deo says that platform which will not be mentioned. Nice. Yeah, I mean, look, we're trying to sort it out with them. Miss Faith is talking to them. We did get a response back. They said, we're experiencing a very high volume right now, and so we'll get back to you when we get back to you. And so what I think actually happened, now that I think about the timing of this thing, is, remember, we got canceled from them right on, I think it was Tuesday, right before we started the show. Well, what happened on Wednesday? The inauguration. And so I think big tech was sort of just clearing out the riffraff, as it were. And of course, since we are now very, very dangerous extremists, we were the first to go. We were talking about like real issues about the election and about some criminal justice stuff. And apparently that's just a little too spicy for them. And so we'll let them sort it out. I would like to get it back. I think there was a lot of productive conversation there. So I'm hopeful that they're just working through it. And I think that maybe, when you have a big sort of a dragnet like this, you're going to get innocent people caught up. I don't think we were doing anything wrong or problematic. I think things are very civil. I think our moderator is doing an excellent job, was keeping things civil, was getting rid of the riffraff. But they didn't see it that way. So we'll see what happens. We got Marcus Richards in the house, says, I think I will now call my cup of coffee a cup of Donald instead of a cup of Joe. I want my coffee to work for me and not make me sleepy. That's exactly right. That's a good point. It's a very astute observation there, Marcus Richards. I think that's pretty important, because Sleepy Joe, you don't want that. It's kind of like the opposite of what you want in a cup of coffee. You want energy. You want stamina. You want enthusiasm. You want a cup of Donald. Good to see you, Marcus. Beth Coddington says, I was feeling so bad for Jen Psaki to field tough questions about interior decorating and a new color for Air Force One. How did she endure? I know, it's just brutal. She's going to be in for a long haul. Next, they're going to ask her about maybe the color of Biden's tie. Do you really think that that's complimentary of his eyes? Because we think blue would be better than a light blue, and teal's even a little bit off. So, come on back, and then Jen can say, that's a great question. Wow, not quite prepared for that one there, Washington Post, but I'm going to look into that for you. We're doing a very rigorous job here, canceling Keystone pipelines, unemploying a lot of Americans. We're trying to figure out how we can't help with COVID anymore. And so let me get back to you on the tie question. We have Kenneth Slayer says, Kamala Harris was a persecutor for a long time. She laughed about putting people in prison. She laughed about them begging for food and water. She said that she smoked marijuana, even though she prosecuted marijuana crimes. She was prosecuting parents for truancy, meaning your kid doesn't go to school. They go and prosecute the parents. There was an order from her office saying that there was, when they were going to release a bunch of individuals out of custody, she was saying, no, we need them because they're cheap labor for California. So essentially, the prisoners are slave labor for Kamala Harris out there in California. Awful, awful person, which is why I have had no love for her at all in this campaign. Beth Coddington says, the media, we couldn't win with the truth, so they have to hide it, right? Isn't it cowardly what the media does? I mean, and big tech too. If you know you're right, if you know that your position on the issue is legitimate and it's defensible, then why wouldn't you just go out there in the arena of ideas and just duke it out with people? Why do you have to cancel people? It's like walking away in an argument in the middle of a debate. When you're having a good conversation, when you're sort of winning in the arena of ideas, and the person just says, well, I'm going to take my ball and go home and F you, I don't like you, and that's it. You go, well, that person's a sore loser, right? That person's kind of cowardly. Isn't that exactly what's happening? They're saying, we don't like your thoughts. We don't like your ideas. We can't compete with them in the arena of ideas. So we're just going to cancel you and throw you off our platform. If that's how they want to play. All right, we got Bianca Perez says, during crazy times and emotions everywhere, I enjoy spending time here and catching up on the news with your calm and collected presence. Also love saying lava java lava. So do I. Isn't it fun? Lava java lava. I enjoy it. Good to see you, Bianca, and I appreciate that. Sometimes I come on here with a little bit more energy. Sometimes it's a little bit slower paced, and I appreciate you for that nice compliment. We're all just sort of sorting through this stuff together. I'm figuring it out as we go along. Hopefully you are too. And we're all just going to try to make sense of it, have a little fun, enjoy good company. It's good to see you, Bianca. Thanks for being here. Hidden Prophet says, the real question is, quote, did they get the corona after they got the cookie basket from Jill Biden? If so, I smell a great conspiracy theory. Yeah. Well, are they getting vaccines too? Are they getting cookies? Are they getting vaccines? What's going on over there? They're getting thrown in parking garages. Okay. Thanks, Hidden Prophet. Husker Mike says, you are awesome. Keep it up. I think the same about you, Husker Mike. You're always supportive of the channel, always supportive. You're always here. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying it because I am having a lot of fun also. And your nice thoughts keep the energy going. So thanks for throwing that out there. We have Beth Coddington says the National Guard equals prop for the despicables. Yeah, so it's sort of a reframing of the despicables or the deplorables. Remember, that's what Hillary said? I thought, yeah, it's the deplorables, a basket of deplorables. She was calling all the Trump supporters that. Probably cost her the election. And so now what we see here is the despicables, which is our congressional individuals, all of them, every one of them. They're all in that basket of despicables. And as soon as the National Guard was done sort of being, useful to them, they just said, oh, thanks, guys. We just needed you to sort of walk around without any ammunition. We knew that there wasn't really a threat. Oh, by the way, we actually think that you were the threat. So we were concerned about a threat against Joe Biden. We brought all of you people in here. We have people on CNN saying, well, the National Guard's like 80% white and white people vote for Donald Trump. Therefore, we need the FBI to vet and investigate all 25,000 of those troops because we don't even trust them. We're going to cart them all in here to D.C. to secure the inauguration, the installation of Joe Biden. And as soon as they were there, they said, well, actually, we don't trust you so much. We kind of imported our own threat. So they had to go and investigate them. And then as soon as they were done with their political spectacle, they said, we're done with you. Thanks for being nice props for us. And we're just going to throw you back over here in this parking garage until some political reporter made mention of that. And rightfully, the American people were so outraged that they said, whoops, we didn't mean to do that. Why don't you come on back in here? You had all the Democrats on Twitter who got the memorandum. Go out there and make sure that they know we're upset about this, even though it's probably likely that our people did it. We control everything now. We control the White House, the Senate, the House, but we got to go out there and start doing a battle in the world of public relations. And that memo went out quickly. Thanks, Beth. Another one from DD Equestrian says, what are your thoughts on Trump rescinding his executive order restricting politicians from becoming lobbyists? Too bad this isn't a law. We talked about that, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday. Read a little bit of the order. I don't like it. It's expected, I think. I don't think anybody thought it was anything other than a political spectacle. But, it's par for the course. This is politics. Quite frankly, I'm not particularly upset that he did it. I think it's fine if he wants to free his people out to go out there and get back into the battle in their own meaningful way, go for it. I don't have a problem with it. We have Sharon Quidney says, came in late. Keep up the great work. Still loving your show in spite of everything. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for being here. I love that little Shih Tzu that you have on your profile picture. I just love it. My folks have a dog that kind of looks like that. Currently, it looks like skin because everything got shaved off, but when it grows its hair out, it looks very, very nice like your dog. We have another one. Sharon says, I don't know if you commented on this already, but I'm really horrified letting boys compete with girls in girls sports. So unfair. I have not talked about that. I saw that. I think you got to be real careful with opinions on those things because of the rules out there. Right. I was reading some of the rules out there and it's a little bit tricky. You got to be careful. It's like a minefield when you comment on some of that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. This is going to be another one of those things. This whole, biological males who aren't really biological males because they say they're not going and then playing sports with biological females who still think they are biological females. It's sort of a mismatch. Okay. I was a wrestler and I can tell you stories. There was one story where I had to wrestle a female. This was back in high school. It's not quite the same thing. Okay. Let me just put it bluntly. She was very, very good. She was, I think, a nationally ranked competitor in the women's class, and she just decided to come play in a tournament. Very nice young gal. And when we had to go compete against one another, everybody was telling me, "Hey man, she's like nationally ranked. This is going to be tough." It wasn't, not even at all. Okay, because there are differences between men and women, as far as I can tell. But what do I know? It might be my white privilege, probably my straight white male privilege coming out. So what the hell do I know? But this is going to be very interesting. I'm very curious to see if this is a problem or not. This is one of those things that because I don't see it at all in my life, I don't have kids. I don't know a lot of kids. I don't know a lot of young people in sports. I don't know a lot of athletes in sports. I'm open to being just sort of oblivious to this whole topic. I just don't know, right? I don't see it much. I can tell you that my instinct says, well, when I wrestled that girl in high school, it was a slaughter fest. It wasn't even close, right? It was brutal. And it feels like that is probably going to continue to happen, right? You're going to have essentially biological males combating against females, and it's just going to be a slaughter, right? It's not even going to be close. And at some point in time, I would guess that this is their standard, right? They put this standard in place. They're going to have to own it. And so when there is a back pressure, when people are watching this, when parents are watching their teenage daughters or their grade school, girls just getting crushed by biological males, I would think that they would be upset about that. But I don't know, and if it's not a problem for them, if they just say, okay, well, that's just how it goes. This is just the new nature of sports. Maybe they don't care. Maybe this is just perfect and everybody's happy. And these individuals who are identifying with one particular gender, maybe they go in and they play their sports and they're happy and the other competitors are happy and the parents are happy and the world's just great. Maybe this is a step in the right direction and I'm just missing something. I'm open to that. And I genuinely mean that. I don't know. But if it is, a situation where that resembles my situation, and mine was opposite, right? Mine was a female coming into the boys. I was probably 16, 17 at the time. She was coming into the boys arena, and major props to her for doing that. I mean, she just wanted to get some practice and some training, and I think that's probably why she was a national champion, because she was wrestling with boys who were in a much higher level of performance. And I wasn't a star wrestler. I won region, and then I didn't even place at the state tournament. But apparently she's like a national placed individual, and you could just see what the capability difference is. And so she was coming into this arena, but you could just imagine if I, let's say, identified as a female or a woman at that point, then I would be in their wheelhouse. And if she was ranked, I think it was like 5th in the nation, and I went and I crushed her immediately without any trouble, I could probably go and just win the whole tournament. I mean, literally, right? Just because we were in the same weight class, same everything. She weighed as much as I did. We were, but I had about 3 times as much muscle as she did. It didn't make sense. It didn't work. And I've done the same thing in mixed martial arts. After I graduated from high school, I stopped wrestling, but I went into mixed martial arts, and I've wrestled with other, powerhouse females. And it's a different game. It's a totally different game. So I don't know how it works, but I would imagine that this will get sorted out one way or the other, and there may be a strong clamoring to go back to the way that it was, or not. This could just be how it works, and this is just the new way sports exist. So we'll see. I'm open to just letting this one play out a little bit. Sharon Quidney says, the folks in the government talk about following science when it comes to climate change and COVID. Why not the genetic differences between boys and girls? It's a good point there, Sharon. It's a good point. Joe Rogan has been pretty critical on that, and he's gotten just skewered about that. A lot of heat comes out when you talk about those issues. Sharon Quidney said, regarding impeachment, unconstitutional according to Dershowitz et al. If they carry through with it, won't that bring a lot of stuff out into the open? So it depends on how the trial is structured. And so I actually don't think that bringing up any of the election stuff is a good strategy in the impeachment proceedings. So if the strategy was that Donald Trump is going to go in there and say, well, I was right, actually. I was right that the election was stolen from me, and here's all the evidence that I have. I think that's going to be just too hot. The senators are not going to want to get involved in that. They're all going to want to just move this stuff along. And so I think the better strategy is to just argue the article of incitement, or the article of impeachment, which is all about incitement. It's all about, the language that he used at that speech. It's about that phone call with Raffensperger, which in my opinion was a settlement conference. And so if they go through and they just go kind of point by point, I think you can make very strong rebuttals against each one of those individual points. And that's the more appropriate way to say it. Rather than going in and relitigating the election. I think that would turn off a lot of Republican senators. And I don't think it's a winning strategy anyways. The main crux of their impeachment is incitement, and it stems directly from the 6th. Okay, all of the election stuff is sort of outside of the scope, in my opinion. But you're right. If they could go that route, and they could do everything they wanted to try to relitigate the electoral issues, the same litigation that we saw throughout the country, they could try to reopen that. I'm not sure how that goes there. I'm not sure if the Chief Justice is going to be presiding over this, whether they're going to allow that type of evidence to come in, whether the Democrats are going to make an argument about some of that so that they open the door, then Trump can respond. We don't know. It's going to be fun, though. I'm looking forward to it. We have Sharon Quidney says Nixon resigned and wasn't impeached. They're just afraid Trump will run again. You're exactly right on that, I think. Exactly right. We have Elise Fossey says, can Trump use the impeachment trial to display election fraud evidence as part of his defense and political strategy? So kind of just answered that there, Elise. I think he can. I don't know that it's a wise strategy, but I think he could, right? If one of their claims here is that he was making fraudulent statements about the election, then he could just say, no, I wasn't. Here's my evidence, right? All of this is true. I've got 2,000 affidavits. I've got Matt Brainard's numbers. I've got, all of these constitutional problems. This is my evidence. And that's a strategy. But I think from a political perspective, remember, this is a political trial. Okay, this is not an actual trial where this stuff matters. This is not about winning the hearts and minds of America. It could be. I mean, he could definitely go that route. But I think if his ultimate end goal is to not get impeached, you do not want to give the senators, you need 17, I think, Republicans in order to get impeached. You do not want to give them an excuse to say, okay, he's still contesting the election. And we don't want that. Right? They're going to want to move past that issue. So I think the real focused issue here is incitement. And if he keeps it limited to that, I think there's no way he gets impeached. We'll see, though. We have Chris Wolney says, you think nobody tried civil suing Trump before? Yeah, Chris is right. Everybody sues Trump. All right. If you're that size, you just have a legal department. You're just kind of used to it. And I know some people in that category. I wouldn't say I know any billionaires, but I know people who are worth a lot of millions, and they just say, oh, lawsuits? Yeah, I don't even look at them. And like you don't even look at them? No, I just forward them to my attorney. I actually don't even see them. Like, that's how many lawsuits I get. Not me personally. I'm speaking of this other person. I'm just thinking, wow, what a way to live. Here I am, small time. It's like if I get even a phone call from the state bar, I'm like, what is that about? And it's like a high alert situation. But when you get to a certain echelon, a certain level, you just go, all right, another lawsuit. How many did I get today? Oh, 2? That's great. It's a good day. It's just a cost of doing business. So Trump is certainly going to be in the crosshairs for that as well. Sharon Quidney says, you say they're not stupid. Impeachment is a really dumb move. If you ask me, I agree with you. Actually, I think that it is a dumb move. I don't know why they're doing it. I don't think it's going to be successful. I think it's going to look really, really lame for them when they try to impeach him again and he's not impeached. And they have failed now twice. They failed twice. Tried to get him and they couldn't make it stick. They're going to see if they can leverage this Capitol Hill animus, this rioting, this public furor about it. But remember, if the trial doesn't start until, let's say, the first week of February, that's another 2 weeks from now. Right? And you can already feel, I don't know if you can feel it yourself. I feel it when I read the media, when I read Twitter, everybody's just kind of moving past that. They wanted to make this into a huge thing. And I'm not saying that the people who didn't die are inconsequential. I agree for all of those people. I think it's really sad that many people died. Very sad that the officer died. Ashley Babbitt, I'm sorry that she got wrapped into the whole thing. That's not what I'm talking about. And I'm very still disgusted by what we saw, but I don't know what the hell that has to do with Donald Trump, quite frankly. And I think that their impeachment articles are very lacking on what they're trying to prove. So if they try to bring this case into the Senate, see where it goes, and they fail again, it's just going to look like, little bickering children who just can't get it. And that's not a winning political move. If Trump beats them from sort of beyond the grave, oof, not too good. Brian Reinhardt says, impeachment to stop him from running, bill of attainder. So I think that's an argument that will be made, but I think the response to that is just going to be, no, we think it's permissible because it's in the Constitution. So I just read through the pertinent part of the impeachment clause, and so they're just going to interpret that differently. They're going to say that it's not a bill of attainder, that this is not anything that's like ex post facto or anything like that, that it's authorized by the Constitution. We have a Court of Appeals, Fourth Circuit judge for something, like a decade. He says, no, it's not constitutional. It's pretty clear. And I think this is something that may actually be litigated. If Donald Trump, goes to this, I think one of the things that he'll need to do is, now that I think about it, I'm curious if he will litigate that issue before impeachment starts. Okay, so they're gonna transmit the documents over. Would Donald Trump then say, no, you cannot impeach me? And so the analogy that we use here in Arizona is called a special action. So if you're so think of this. We're going to do a quick crash course on the law. If let's say you go to trial, you charge with domestic violence, you go to trial, you get convicted of the crime. You say, no, I shouldn't have been convicted. Something wrong happened in the trial. I want to appeal my case. I'm going to appeal it to the next level. Okay, so you appeal it, and the judge reverses it and reverses your conviction. That's great. But that's at the conclusion of a case. What happens if you have a problem in the middle of the case before you get to a trial, before you get to a final resolution? Let's say you're arguing over a piece of discovery. You say, there's a 911 call that I think I should have access to. And the prosecutor says, no, you shouldn't have access to that. Here's why. It's whatever. And so you want to fight out over that issue, over getting a copy of that 911 call, which you should always get, but I'm just speaking hypothetically here. And you say, all right, so we're going to be fighting over this issue. This is a very important issue because however this goes, whether I get that call or I don't get that 911 call, that could ultimately impact how the trial goes and what the resulting conclusion of the trial is. So we have to get this call situated before we can move forward. And so what you do, if you can't sort that out in the lower level courts, you move that up to an appeals court. It's called a special action. You basically get guidance from a higher level court. So you say, okay, we're fighting over this issue. What do you have to say about it, court? The court says, okay, give him the phone call, send it back down. You get the phone call. The trial continues to move forward. So similar type of thing here with this impeachment proceeding. What if Donald Trump now says, okay, they transmit the articles over to the Senate. Trump says, okay, that's neat that you have them in the Senate. I don't care. You're not allowed to impeach me. I'm not in office anymore. So what if they just filed some sort of a special action? I don't even know what the mechanism would look like. But what if they took it up to the Supreme Court and asked the Supreme Court, hey, can they impeach me right now? I'm not in office. The Constitution says I'm not in office. The Fourth Circuit appeals judge says you can't do that. A lot of other academics say that you can't do this. What do you have to say about that? So they could take it up to the Supreme Court now. Or if the Supreme Court declines to hear it, then they could just preserve that issue. So then if the Supreme Court says, nope, sort it out first, see if you get impeached. If you do get impeached, then you renew that issue with the Supreme Court and say, hey, look, see, we told you, we had a question about this. I'm now convicted. I think it's an unlawful conviction. Now I want to appeal it to you again. The issue has been preserved by a lower level, by a sort of a intermediary objection. Now the Supreme Court can come back in and say, all right, well, yeah, you can get convicted because we interpret the Constitution this way, or conversely, you cannot get convicted because we agree with a lot of the other interpretations that once you're out of office, you can't get impeached. So very long answer, but a couple different ways that I think that procedurally the Trump team can sort of throw a rub in the whole mix. I just don't know what their strategy is going to be yet. We have Bianca Perez says, ha 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 ha, Schumer said Trump incited the erection and then went on. Where was his mind at talking about Trump? Well, Bianca, I think we know where it was. He's very, very excited about this impeachment. Oof. All right. We have Marcus Richards says, ease up on the language, Rob. Can't be going hard on anything after what Chuck said. Oh, do you see what happened there? Do you see what he did? Let's take a look at this. Pretty good stuff. He said, Rob, you can't be going hard. See that right there? That's clever there, Marcus. I love it. Can't be going hard on anything after what Chuck said. Yeah, everything's going to be easy now. Nothing's going to be hard anymore. We have S. Love says, erection, laughing my ass off. So funny. Good catch on the face. Yeah, he makes it. He goes, he incited the erection. He goes, shoot. Okay. And then he goes back and says it again. Good to see you, Miss S. Love. We got Wolfgang Deo in the house. Says removal and disqualification. One could argue that the disqualification has to be connected to the removal. And yeah, so it's a conjunctive phrase. So that you're exactly right. So you talk about conjunctive and disjunctive phrases. So you can think about we talk about this a lot in the law. It's a very important concept, and Wolfgang just hit it right on the head. If you are in a position where you say, okay, you could be charged with conspiracy if you and one other person engage in agreement, or disjunctive, you and another group of individuals engage in an agreement. So you and one person, or you and another group, or you and something else, right? Or, and I'm saying this separately. This is a different example. Something must be and. So like I'm thinking of one in Arizona. Okay, aggressive driving. It requires 3 different things. Number 1, you have to be going over the speed of 85 miles per hour. Number 1. And you also have to commit 2 of the following infractions. And then it gives you a list of them. So like an unsafe lane change, a following too close, whatever that is. And it's a class 1 misdemeanor. It's the same class as the DUI. It's a very serious charge here. 8 points on your license is a big deal. And so if you're missing one of those things, if you're only going over, if you're only criminally speeding going over 85 and you miss the other things, that's not enough. It has to be an and. It has to be conjunctive. All of the elements have to be met. Otherwise, it's not enough. And so that's what Wolfgang's argument here is. He's saying that it is a conjunctive. It's removal and disqualification. It's not removal or disqualification. In other words, you can't bring an impeachment suit for removal or for disqualification. It's for removal and disqualification. And I think that's it's right. And I think the other academics have agreed with that. Aaron Seavey says, hypo, police investigate and arrest a person. Case is based on random events, then found not to be true. It's based on investigation. Will this damage the police case, or does ends justify the means? Why misdirect facts? So it's a good question. It's a good question, Aaron. And I think I get the gist of what you're asking for. So here's my experience. So there's a whole spectrum of police officers that exist out there in the world. Some of them are very, very honest. Some of them are not honest at all. And they're still on the police force. We've talked about most of those guys. Okay. We talk about them all the time in our bad popo segment. Then you kind of have people in the range in between the two on the spectrum. Some are more honest, but not 100%. Some are less honest, but can be honest from time to time. It's just a spectrum, just kind of like anything, right? You have good dentists and bad dentists, and you have mediocre dentists. You have a good massage therapist and a bad massage. The good teachers, bad teachers, same thing. So you got honest cops, good cops, and some not so good. And so what you'll see, and this is my experience as a criminal defense lawyer, been practicing for 8 years now, is, yeah, my gosh, 8 years. Wow. Yeah. All right. So what that is I'm still kind of blown away how long that time flies. Time flies. I didn't even realize that. I just had my 8th anniversary on January 13th. How about that? So here's what I'm talking about. So when you're talking about dishonesty, I've seen police officers copy and paste from police report to police report. We've caught them with their pronouns not changing and with names not changing and things like that. So sometimes what you say is right. Like the police will go in, they'll see something, and then they'll manufacture some sort of evidence after the fact. So they'll go back and they'll write their police report and they'll just pull stuff from wherever they want. Okay, and they'll consolidate it into a report. They'll use that report as evidence and they'll submit that to the prosecutor, who then will run with it. And that happens. Okay, I've seen cases where a good example of a case where they sort of make things up is this actually happens very frequently. In Scottsdale, Arizona, we have an Old Town district where there's a lot of activity goes on. Not so much anymore. It's basically dried up since COVID, but there used to be a lot of activity going on. And in Scottsdale, what they would do is they would just arrest everybody for anything, for any reason, at any time, no matter what. So if there was an altercation that took place, basically what the cops do is they just do laps on bikes around Old Town. They see a problem, they call they call the wagon, the police come out there, they swoop everybody up. They don't even talk to anybody. They just swoop you up. Then they throw you in, take you down to custody. You see a judge. They charge everybody with disorderly conduct or assault or criminal trespass for not leaving. They just sort of throw everything at them. And then it's up to the defense team or the individual, if they're not going to hire a lawyer, to sort it out on their own. And there have been many cases where we've had clients come into our office and hire us, and they'll say, listen, I literally did nothing. Like, I'm not just saying that, I literally did it. And I go, I know. Yeah, I know. And they go, no, but I'm telling you, like, I didn't do anything. And I go, I know it's Scottsdale. Like, I 100% believe you. You know, they think that every person that comes into the office says that, I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. And that's usually not the case. People usually come in and they say, listen, I screwed up. I need help. And we go, okay, that's cool. We help. We can work you through it. But, they come in and they go, literally nothing. And then we'll go into the prosecutor's office. We'll plead our case. The prosecutor turns around and says, well, the cop said he did. And they'll look at the report. And we've looked at it, of course, at that time, and we've reviewed it with our clients. And our client says, none of that is true. Like, literally none of that is true. The prosecutor says, well, our cop says it's true. So we're just going to believe the cop. We're not going to believe our client. Okay, that's fair. So then we go, a step further, or we we essentially, this used to be a thing we had to fight over, but body camera footage. We would get the body camera footage from Scottsdale PD. And they used to do this thing where they would click on the cameras and click them off. So there wouldn't be one clean image or one clean video. You'd get 5 minutes on, they turn it off. 5 minutes off, turn it on. On and off and on, click, 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 click. So that you had to like piece all of these things together. All right, so fine. So we get them all. They would make you pay for every individual clip. It was just a mess. That prosecutor's no longer there anymore. She got fired, thank God. But or resigned, I should say, or fired, resigned. Who knows what happened, but not there anymore. And so things have gotten better, but this was a big problem for a period of time. And I'm going on long here because it's important. But what we would do is we would then piece together the body camera footage from different angles, from different cops, get surveillance footage from the cameras at the bar or whatever, cell phone videos, and you could see it. And we would literally, I remember doing this, I would literally take my laptop in to a prosecutor who I had a conversation with about the police report. And I would say, this report is a lie. Like, it's a lie. And they'd say, well, no, I know the officer. It's officer so-and-so. He's been on the force for 15 years. He's a good guy and blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, he got it wrong then. If it's not a lie, he got it wrong. And they said, well, it's Old Town. It's a mess out there. And I will literally play on the laptop in their face because they won't go look at it on their own. And I'll say, look, watch. Can you just watch this for about 5 minutes? Watch. Play. And they'll see that our client was backing up the whole time, was not involved in the conflict in any way, was standing on the corner, was, like literally not involved for the whole time. And he was still charged with a crime, and he was still, they were going to skewer him. And he had nothing to do with it. And if he would not have hired an attorney, if he would have hired a subpar attorney, some attorney who just said, yeah, I believe you, whatever, here's what they're offering and take this deal, he probably would have pled guilty to the crime. And that happens all the time in America. And if you didn't have somebody, and I'm not saying this, but we had to literally, like, the prosecutor would not watch it on their own. You have to put it in their face and say, watch this, please. They watch it. They go, you're right. They just file a motion to dismiss the case. It's gone. Saves him a trial, saves him a potential loss, and the case is resolved. Nothing happens, though. Cop's still good. Everything's good. Prosecutor doesn't even care. Doesn't even make a blip on their mind as far as I can tell. So it happens all the time. Okay, this is not a perfect justice system by any stretch of the imagination. Dorica Richter says, God is still on the throne. Greetings from France. Hey, that's cool. I don't think we've had anybody from France. Good to see you, Dorica. Thanks for being here. I had a good buddy in high school with the last name Richter. We used to call him Richter. Wonder what he's up to these days. We have S. Love says, please cover the Biden immigration policies. He's implementing huge changes. I'm worried the impact of these policies will have on elections and fraud. Grr. Yeah, we'll cover those. Is there still a caravan sort of storming up in here to be part of whatever that is? We'll certainly get there. We got a lot to cover with Biden. We got Wolfgang Deo says the left only wanted Trump out, so they should be softened up with a Biden win and inauguration. Time to start pressing. And we live in AZ. We Cowboys. Yeah, Wolfgang's right around the corner in our backyard here in Arizona. So we have some Cowboys here. Right? I don't have a cowboy hat or one of those ties or anything like that, but we do have a lot of Cowboys here. We got John Crute says Trump was offering people red pills. Schumer offering erections. I think he has his blue pills confused. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, look, impeachment is a very powerful aphrodisiac if you're a liberal. They really get them going a little bit. I don't know what. Look, I'm not going to say it. I don't know what Schumer and his wife do at night. That's okay. I said it. All right. So John McClain says, I love it. A cup of Dawn, please. Cup of Dawn. Get that energy, baby. High energy. You don't want Sleepy Joe coffee. Wolfgang Deo says, Kamala likely wears shoes made by slave labor. Why would she go persecuting everyone and fill up the sweatshops for her needs? Lava Java Lava. So, Wolfgang, Kamala's got a little bit of hypocrisy going on in her world. There's no question about it. Bianca Perez says, does Trump have or can this go or does Trump have or can go to this impeachment trial? So yes, my understanding is he can. I think the next question will be, will he? Just in terms of optics, is that something he's going to do? I don't know. I don't think he went to the last one because he was in the White House, right? He was still the president at that time. Now that he's a private citizen, we don't know. I mean, I would imagine that he can go to it. I just don't know if he will or not. We have Greg David says, can Green file impeachment articles every week? Yeah, I mean, why not? I think we should just impeach everybody. We have another one from Toots Magoots says, you are amazing. Thank you, Toots Magoots. I think the same about you. And Map Maker Jenny is throwing us the karate fox, or is that a Shiba? A karate Shiba? I'll take either one. Thanks to both of you. We have TZ1052 says they broke impeachment 2 years later with our House. Trump elected a speaker. 2 impeachment later, he is president. Speaker can be anyone per the Constitution. So yeah, there's been some talk about that. What if Donald Trump, good to see you, TZ. What if Donald Trump, say, he's now in Mar-a-Lago down there in Florida. What if he decided to run for the House of Representatives? And what if he won? Could he be the Speaker of the House? Or, as TZ is saying, well, you don't even really need to run. Okay, if the Republicans took control of the House, let's say he gets impeached and the Republicans win the House of Representatives back next time, the Republicans can start their own impeachments of their own, and Donald Trump could be the Speaker of the House. Right? Very interesting times. We got Seiji Takahara says, what if Maricopa is letting transparency now because they manipulated that evidence to look kosher? What did they do these last 2 months? That's a very good question and a great point. A lot of the time in these things, what we'll do, at least as a law firm, is we'll file a motion for a preservation of evidence. So this will be one of the first things that we do, right? As soon as we know that something went down, it's boom, preserve the evidence. Ask a court, say, hey, we're on notice, notify them, preserve it. If they don't, they're going to be really, harshly sanctioned for not preserving the evidence. So I'll be curious to see if any of that happened here in Maricopa County, any preservations. We got Sasha Sisha says 80 million voted and Beijing Biden gets 10,000 plus dislikes. Yeah. Are you noticing that across the board? YouTube is even acknowledging it now. They're saying that all of those downvotes that have been removed, all of those thumbs down on the White House videos, which are massive, are, inorganic is what they're saying. They're saying, nope, that's just kind of spammy. We're looking for legitimate engagement. So before you thumbs down it, at least, mute it and let it play for a little bit. Then you can thumbs down it and then YouTube might count it because that's actual engagement. Currently, they're just saying it's not engagement. It's sort of spammy votes. So only the people who watch it should actually vote. We have Lava Java Lava says smoked brisket and rib tips tonight. Oh, he says you're missing out, Rob. I am missing out. That sounds so good. I'm looking forward to a big dinner. Don't know what that is going to be yet, but it's not going to compare with smoked brisket and rib tips. Enjoy Lava Java Lava. A lot of people are loving it up. The Lava Java. We have Toots Magoot says, happy anniversary. Thanks, Toots. I appreciate it. We are, I totally forgot about it. 8 years is kind of one of those, all right, that's neat. 10, that'll be a big one. Oh my gosh. I can't even believe it. We have Peanut 411 says, always film the police. Always film the police. It's a good idea. I think it's always good to be recording. There are a lot of good apps that will help you do that. I think the ACLU, whether you love them or hate them, I think they have a pretty good app. If I recall, I think it's them, and it just automatically uploads your stuff to the cloud. Or just live stream that sucker, right? It might be good. We have John Crute says, congratulations on 8 years. Change the theme song to Gotta Have Faith, Faith, Faith. Great show as always. Keep up the outstanding research and work and growth. Thanks, John. Very much appreciated. 8 years is pretty exciting. Like I said, I totally even forgot about that. It was on the 13th. It was on the 13th. That was impeachment day. Okay, so it's very symbolic for me. And we're having a lot of fun here, John, and it's been very interesting. We've only been doing this live show every day of the week or every weekday for about 4 months now. I think we started in September, and the engagement, the learning experience that I'm having, the fun, the feedback, it's just great. And now that we are in sort of this new chapter, this new era of this Biden administration, it's going to be fun, and I'm grateful for your support. I'm grateful that you're here, so thank you very much, John. Another one, got a couple more before we wrap up and get out of here for the day. Another one from John McLean says, this means males can decide they identify as a female and take college scholarships from females. Totally unfair advantage. Wow, okay, so, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. This is one of those things where there's going to be a lot of, I would say, unintended consequences that people may end up being very resentful towards. And I don't know how it's going to shake out. It's going to be curious to see where it goes. We have Z chiming in, says, it's funny that Kamala protested for freedom as a child only to grow up to take that freedom away from others. Yeah, it's true. It's true. She did a lot of it. I mean, her whole career was sort of in that space as a prosecutor, as an attorney general. And now she's an advocate for criminal justice reform, even though you spent your career just like literally locking people up and being calloused as hell about it and wanting to exploit people for their labor and using the same drugs that you incarcerated people for. It's the hypocrisy of the century in terms of politics. I mean, there's nothing else that I think even comes close. We have Chris Wolney say, ever see Making a Murderer? One very disgusting scene where a 16-year-old's defense attorney colluding with the prosecution. Many unpleasant surprises in this show. 100%. That show was very revealing. And a lot of what you see in these Netflix series and stuff, I wouldn't say that all of it's 100% true, but some of it is. And a lot of it that's sort of, I would say, exaggerated a little bit for dramatic effect. It's got the ring of truth to it. I mean, it's sort of extrapolated and it's phrased in a way that is easily consumable for non-lawyers. But when you get down into the nitty gritty of it, yeah, I mean, it's wild. I know. Let me be careful about this, but there are certain attorneys out there in this world who are the go along, get along types, and they just want to move cases through. They just want to dispose of them. Right. And so they have a little spiel where they'll say, I care about you and I do this and you're going to get a great whatever. It's not in their heart. Right. They just are sort of operating to just move cases through. And in my mind, it's the wrong way to practice law. I think it's unethical. I think it's gross behavior. I'm not sure how they sleep at night, but you saw some of that in that documentary, in Making a Murderer, where there is collusion. They're just both tired of dealing with it. And so whatever it takes to make it go away, even if it's at the expense of a human being, their life, their reputation, their ability to, spend time with their kids or to be free and live in the world, it's just glossed over as it's almost transactional, like buying a can of soda. It's very, very gross. And that was a main reason why I could never have been a prosecutor. I mean, I wanted to be a prosecutor my first year in law school until I had to start dealing with prosecutors. And I realized how very little humanity and interaction they have and how much empathy is sort of just ripped out of their souls. And I could never, ever have done something like that, which is why I just immediately flipped and went right to the defense. We have Faye Spurlock, the storyteller, says, hi, Rob, Faith, and Ma. Love your show. It's federal law that they must keep ballots and everything for 22 months. So there we go. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks, Faye. So presumably she was responding to the other question about, are they going to have the evidence preserved in the Arizona Maricopa County Board of Supervisors recounting in the audit? And it sounds like they will. So I didn't know that. So thanks for that, Faye Spurlock, the storyteller. We have Chris Wolney says, happy anniversary, bro. Great show. It will grow. Thanks, Chris. And thanks for the well wishes. And we're going to keep just plugging along here. The show is kind of plateaued in terms of growth. I'm totally fine with that. I know we're still in the penalty box a little bit, and it will continue to grow. We're just going to keep plugging on. And the results will come when they come. In the meantime, I'm perfectly happy, and I'm very happy that you're here and you're appreciative of the show, and I thank you for your support. We have Aaron Seavey saying, public defender, safe to say they are more of law interpreter than defense lawyer. Do they inform the client? They are more co-counsel in court. So another good question, Aaron, and this is sort of, I actually have a lot of positive things to say about public defenders. I actually really appreciate them, and I don't like to talk down about them. And when people call them like public pretenders and things like that, I'm like, no. There are a lot of really, really outstanding public defenders, people who, they sort of take a moderate income reduction. I'm not even sure that that's accurate. I mean, some of them are very well paid, and they have a lot less stress and a lot of federal benefits and public benefits and loan forgiveness and all this stuff. So they get compensated very well, many of them, but they're living sort of a different area of law to a certain extent. They're able to focus on just the practice of law, which can be very freeing to a certain extent. If you're in private practice, you have a lot of other things to think about. You've got employees to hire, and you've got a business to build, and you've got marketing to do, and you've got just a lot of other, brain space that sort of can be gobbled up by these things. And I know it because I have built a firm around that. So, public defenders have a little bit more freedom to just be lawyers. part of what we have done at our firm is I've sort of built that same principle for our lawyers here. I don't want them thinking about anything else other than winning cases and helping people and providing value and providing safety, clarity, and hope. So it's a little bit of a different than private practice. Some law firms that are private, they don't think about that at all. They just want their attorneys to churn and burn cases. And I just got done saying I don't like that way of practicing law. So we've built our structure here a little bit differently. But the point is, a lot of public defenders are excellent lawyers. Just as I was talking about that sort of spectrum of cops, some are honest and excellent, some are not so good and bad. Same thing with public defenders. You're going to find people in there who are just there for the benefits and for collecting a paycheck, and you're going to have other people. This is their life passion. They're very passionate about it. They don't want to go think about marketing. They don't want to go think about having to sell a case or convince somebody that they're going to help them. They just want to be just given the case and just go grind it out. And I've learned a lot from some very experienced public defenders. And I think that they shouldn't be sort of lumped into all one bucket. It's just like anything else. There are excellent private defense lawyers. There are horrendous private defense lawyers. I know. I used to work for one of them or two of them. And so, there's a spectrum with anything. And I don't think public defenders get as much credit as they deserve. We have Glenn Shelton says, Biden wants to hold gun manufacturers liable for gun violence. Does this mean we can start suing gun manufacturers for wrecks? Yeah. Yeah, or maybe sue a president who doesn't wear his mask and infects National Guard people with COVID. You can play this game all day long. We have Lady Anderson says, if Trump did have a trial, which would be weak, they wouldn't be able to find an unbiased jury due to CNN and the media. Can the media be held accountable? Well, not for that. I don't think there, lady. I think you have a good point. A jury trial with Donald Trump as the defendant. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine that? What that would look like? It would be a mess. I don't know that you could ever get a jury. I mean, truthfully, I don't even know how that would work. Yeah, it'd be rough. Can the media be held accountable? No, they're not going to be held accountable. I mean, the media is doing its job, and unless they're doing something that is intentionally malicious, which is a very high standard, it's hard to prove. If they can connect this back to anything that is remotely news, even if it's got a bad spin or a bad twist, our freedom of speech here supersedes the ability to file a claim against somebody for saying something that they don't like, which I agree with, right? I don't think that these, libel laws and defamation laws and all of those things should be too aggressive. I want more free speech, not less of it. And so I don't think that the media could be held accountable either by my standard or by the current standard. So your point is well taken, though, there, lady, though, that Trump is going to be, it's going to be very difficult for him to find a fair shake anywhere he goes. And when it comes to impeachment, it's not going to be a jury. It's just going to be the senators who get to vote on whether or not to convict. And because it's a political show trial, the less political he can make it, I think the more likely he is just to sort of, get through this thing quietly and without much fanfare. It's going to provide a lot more cover for the Republican senators to just go in, vote to acquit, get on with their business. Then Trump can raise his head again as soon as it's over, right? And we'll see if he does or not. Couple more before we wrap up. We got SSW Lamb says, hi, Rob and Miss Faith. When will the media stop the Toobin and fawn over Biden? Jeffrey Toobin. The media is pulling the Toobin. So is Chuck Schumer out over there, apparently. And they're fawn over Biden. Biden nicht mein Führer. Need my cup of Donald. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your Donald there, SSW Lamb. That's a good point. Does anybody else watch Coffee with Scott Adams? It could be the Donald with Scott Adams. We have our last one of the day, it looks like, from Seiji Takahari. Another one coming in. It says, can y'all start suing people for using cleansing and deprogramming in a way obviously meant to be conspiracy to commit genocide? It's a good point. I don't think there's a legal claim for that in court for suing somebody for using bad language like that, sort of hinting that they're going to be executing genocide. But I do have problems with that language. When people say, we need to purge the Trump supporters, or we need to, combat or reprogram or cleanse or whatever that language is. I mean, it's troubling language. I do not like it at all. I think it's indicative of their true feelings, though, unfortunately, which is the problem with it. But we got a couple more coming in. We have, can Obama be impeached, from our number one lava java lava? And I think the answer, if it's the Democrats' own standard, right, if they're going to be impeaching Trump after he left office, then yeah, I would say absolutely you can impeach Barack Obama. You can impeach any former politician ever to stop them from running again. And so they're opening up a major can of worms. Why would they want to do that? I mean, you can impeach all of them in perpetuity for as long as you want. We'll see, which actually makes me think of a different thing. It's so if Donald Trump's going to be contesting that, why would he take it up to the Supreme Court and have them settle that issue on whether he can be impeached or not? I think I would do it after the fact. Let him impeach him, then take it to the Supreme Court. I don't know. We'll see what they do. Chris Wolney says, hear of Kathleen Zellner. She's awesome. No, I have not heard of her. Is she on YouTube? I'll have to Google her in a little bit. We have Aaron Seavey says, Rob, when a lawyer is pro bono working, do the law offices give them help and resources on their cases, or are they doing all the work on their own? So pro bono just means that you're not taking a fee for representation, right? So if you are, let's say, a private law firm like ours, when we take a pro bono case, we're representing somebody for free. And so we use all of the resources that our firm has in order to do that. And, we don't do that much, quite frankly, because we have employees and we've got, bills to pay and things like that. But we do sometimes reduce fees dramatically or offer very long payment plans or, waive trial fees. Like sometimes somebody will hire us and then we'll say, well, we have to take this case to trial. Like this is a winnable case. And they say, I don't have any more money. I can't afford it. We say, that's fine. Okay, we're going to waive that fee because of whatever hardship, and we think you have an awesome issue and we want to win this case, and so we'll do it. And so, in our situation, we would be using the resources of the firm. If you're a public defender, you are a pro bono attorney for the client because they're not paying for you. They get assigned a public defender because they can't afford a private attorney. But the public defender is not working for free. They're paid by our taxes. The government pays for their salaries. And so they would marshal all of the resources from the public defender's office. And that would be their compensation. So it's, somebody's getting paid for it. Sometimes you'll have pro bono work that is done by the Justice Project, where they'll pick up a case and represent somebody, but they're usually being paid through donations. It takes money to fund something. Either a lawyer is just not getting paid, or they're generating revenue from some other sources. But legal work's a lot of work. Like it's not, you just don't go into court. People think you just go into court like Harvey Specter and you just smile at somebody and give them a nice little wink and everything just works out. I mean, it's a lot of research and work and court and negotiating and fighting over little things like discovery. It's a lot. And so it can depend. Whomever you're working with, you just have to sort of figure out what their structure is, and then it'll make more sense. We have Chris Kelly says, seen every episode since November 20th. Love the show from the UK. That's so awesome, Chris. Thank you for telling me that. I love that, and I appreciate you being here. And you're noticing probably, some shifts and moves, and I'm still ebbs and flows, and we're still trying to figure it out. And so I appreciate the fact that you've been here so long and you are enduring some of our growing pains. It's very meaningful. And I'm glad that you're here. I hope you do stick with us. And so Chris Kelly was the last one of the show. We're going to wrap it up right here, my friends. I want to thank you so much yet again for being with us on this lovely Friday evening. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Before we sign off, a couple quick things. If you want a copy of the slides, they are over at locals.com. So go to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Miss Faith is going to be sending those out if she has not already done so. I think the format over on Locals will be, we'll do a sort of a everyday show thread in Locals. And if you are a supporter, you have to be a supporter in order to leave a comment. You can view everything, I think, for free. You can download the slides for free, get a copy of my book for free. It's called Beginning to Winning. You can buy the PDF on Amazon if you want, or you can just go download the PDF over on Locals. You can also get a copy of my existence system template is over there. Copy of the impeachment articles are over there. If you want to schedule an appointment with our law firm because you've been charged with a crime in Arizona, that's over there. And so all of that's available for you there for free. So just go check that out. If you do want to comment, though, apparently they're making you pay something, and I think it's $5 in order to do that. So we'd appreciate the support. It's all going to go to good use. And, it's a good place to hang out. There's some pretty cool people over there talking both before and after the show. And we'd love to see you over there. So head on over there if you want to get all that stuff. As I mentioned, books, slides, all available. One more thing, if you do know anybody in Arizona who's been charged with a crime or who needs help clearing off an old record, Arizona just passed some new rules about marijuana. If they've got old charges they want to clear up, we can help them with that. If they want to get a mugshot off the internet, we've got some solutions for that. If they want to quash an old warrant or restore their civil rights, if they want to be able to vote again, own a firearm again, we can help with all of that. We're very good at it. We like to say we offer people safety, clarity, and hope about their case and their future so that they don't just get ground up by the justice system. We offer free case evaluations. We're very good at what we do, and we'd be honored and humbled if you trusted us enough to send somebody our way. We'll take very good care of them. Other than that, my friends, this is it for the week. We're going to be back here, same time, same place. Going to be a lot to cover next week, and we're looking forward to it. We want to make sure that you are here and with us. So one more reminder to like, subscribe, share and comment, and the only last thing is to have a good weekend. Sleep well, enjoy some time with some friends and family, turn off the politics for a little bit, unplug. Remember that politics is not life. We have life and it's not politics. So go enjoy that. I want to thank you once again for being here. Same place, same time next week. It's 5 p.m. in Arizona, which is Mountain Standard Time. We've got 4 p.m. in California on the West Coast, 6 p.m. Central if you're joining us from Texas, and 7 p.m. on the East Coast. The UK and those other places, I don't know about those. So Chris Kelly, it sounds like you do. Thanks for being here for so long. And thank you to all of you. Thank you to Ma. Very much appreciate you being here. I will see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.